in public finance, taxation, and strategic governance, he has shaped key national reforms and continues to guide dialogue on energy transition and economic stewardship. So we welcome you. Can we give a round of applause from everyone? Thank you. Sri Sabyasachi Patnaik, who is a distinguished industry leader, mentor, and innovation enabler whose work has empowered thousands of young enterprises with deep expertise spanning technology, business strategy, and organizational transformation. He plays a pivotal role in shaping new age entrepreneurship and nurturing the next generation of industry creators. Again, a round of applause we expect from all of you. Sri Priyadarshi Mahapatra sir, we welcome you. And the stage is open now, and I would be requesting Siddharth sir to kindly set the tone for the very important session for which we all have gathered over here. Sir, over to you.
Jai Jagannath. It's a wonderful morning. The setting is fabulous. One of the finest minds in India is Dr. Anil Kakaotkar, Padma Vibhushan, father of the nuclear bomb in India, former chairman Atomic Energy Commission, chairman of many committees of government India. In my view, I worked closely with Sir. There could not be a better mind at his age to give discourse about innovation, startups, what are the problems being faced. And you can see at a ripe old age of more than 80, he's still very, very active. There is no better person in my view to give advice to these young entrepreneurs for Orissa who are aspiring to be one day great innovators, icons, unicorns. We have two of the best minds in Odisha, Mr. Sabyasachi Patnaik, who has made a lot of money by selling his company to Capgemini. Same with Priyadarshi Mahapatra, another brilliant mind from Orissa, who was heading many international MLCs and has come back to his home to give the best for the state. I'll not waste further in giving introduction. May I now introduce Dr. Anil Kakaotkar and request Sir to give his thinking, ideas, how the young entrepreneurs could progress in life. Thank you, sir.
And of course, all colleagues present in this hall in the context of Purvodaya through startup ecosystem. Now, I'm not going to take too long because I think this is a discussion where everybody would participate. But to kind of share my perspective very quickly, of course, Shri Pradhan just now said I belong to atomic energy. Atomic energy has two sides, a soft side and a hard side. And depending on how one wants to use it, the world reacts to it. And we have gone through our full measure about that global reaction, and I think we have settled the issue properly. Now, in the context of this discussion that we are talking about, see, the world, of course, world moves by respective interests of different countries. But in that, how one country can fare depends on the influence you can have on your counterparts, other countries, other societies and all. And there are two parts to that. So that's an image of India. That's an image of India which is not well appreciated. But India did exert. You go and travel in that region, you see imprints of Indian culture all over even now. The question is, what is that strong resource which differentiates India from other countries today? And according to me, that strong resource is our youth. And in the startup space, what Indian youth are doing, I don't have to tell you, you are all very familiar with this. So now, of course, startups have many triggers, they have many drivers, but in the context of what we are discussing, if one were to examine what are those triggers or what are those drivers, leveraging the biggest of Indian resource, that is youth, and in the context of getting closer to East, being able to have larger influence on the East as a whole, it looks to me few things are, rather than looking at business, rather than looking at products and commerce as we are normally used to, that is West oriented. Obviously, that is where the market lies, so everybody works on that, and that is only natural to happen. But I think we need to recognize that large potential that exists going eastwards. And that is in terms of natural resources, both mineral as well as agriculture, horticulture, and things like that. Now you can compare that with the Indian economic scene. We feel that agriculture is not contributing much to our economy. Now this, according to me, is an industrial era mindset. Today we're talking about knowledge era, digital era, and I'm sure all of you, most of you are probably connected or interested in that domain. Now in the digital era, when work from home is the buzzword, now of course there is a little adjustment to that thought, but still it's an important thing. You can work from anywhere, anytime, and things like that. So the so-called remote areas, so-called infrastructure-wise somewhat poor areas can also contribute a lot to economy. And it's not as if you are sitting in an agricultural setting or such setting, it's not as if you can't participate in manufacturing economy and certainly service economy, which is of course the largest share. We can do that. So the point is, this is now an opportunity to bridge the divide, the disparities that exist. Now you can say that in Indian context, but you can say also in the larger context. Because leaving aside few exceptions, Japan, Korea and all, but largely the region in terms of its economic status and all, there may be plus minus, something more, something less, but we are comparable. And so together, I think leveraging digital era, leveraging education, which is a strong point that we have, we can do a lot of things, both in terms of value add of a different kind, and you can exploit market both in the East as well as in the West. And so my proposition is leveraging our resources, that is youth, leveraging our resources, that is education infrastructure, leveraging our resources, that is the traditional knowledge, which is not fully appreciated, and leveraging our resources in terms of the culture and art that exists in the region. I think there are lots of possibilities in terms of developing business through startup movement and make the difference for the East, for the India, and and this is very important in the way the world is shaping today. You know, world is tending to be. Earlier, we used to talk about rule-based governance. Now, somewhere this is all going for a toss. Now, who will dominate whom is determined by whims, fancies, power, and things like that. And in that situation, I think there is an opportunity for all countries in the East, led by India, to come together and make a difference. And so I would say, think about it. It is same technologies for aggregation, technologies for linking the downstream and upstream technologies for connecting traditional and modern ideas. And of course, our young people can do all that. So I think this is a great opportunity and we can talk more. I don't want to monopolize the discussion here. And we have two stalwarts who can show a lot of ideas and way forward. All of you can have your ideas. So I will stop here and get into listening more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. All right, everyone, I'm sure you're aware about the name who is leading in healthcare sector by combining technology with healthcare and of course sometimes for I can say major of the people who belong to poverty line or below the class, economical class, they actually suffer and they can't access the affordable and the right healthcare which is required. For the same, we have one of the pioneer who is the founder of and CEO of CureBay, a health tech platform transforming last mile healthcare delivery in rural India. With a vision to make quality healthcare accessible and affordable, he combines technology, trained health practitioners, and strong community engagement to bridge critical healthcare gaps effectively. Please give a round of applause. Once again, we welcome Priyadarshi Mahapatra sir, and I request you to speak some words and address the gathering.
Sure. It's okay if I sit here and speak? All right. Good morning, everybody. And first and foremost, it's an honor to share the stage with dignitaries like Dr. Kakotkar here, Siddharth sir, and my good friend Sabyasachi. But the most energizing thing is looking at all the faces in the room. I believe the energy in this room and the ideas and thoughts in this room could be significantly more powerful than all the power that the NVIDIA GPUs bring on the table. This room has the power to change the world in the true sense because entrepreneurs see challenges, then they figure out the opportunity in the challenge, and then they go against the trend to solve it. Machines will always enable us, help us in our journey, but those ideas and thoughts of identifying a challenge and solving it will always be a contribution of entrepreneurs. So the responsibility all of you have in this room is significantly high, and I believe we have the power to change the world. And let me give you 3 examples from my own journey. And this is my second venture, but I think entrepreneurial moments don't just exist when you start a company. Entrepreneurial moments exist in our everyday life. It's up to us how we look at those opportunities and what we do. The first story that I want to share with all of you was when I was not an entrepreneur. I started my career with Titan, and everybody wanted to be part of the watches team because Titan was disrupting the watch industry. And I was told I'm going to be part of a team which is going to make jewelry. I had no clue about jewelry. And I initially thought it's a punishmental transfer. what is this jewelry Titan is making, nobody is buying, why are they sending me there? And trust me, this was a time when the vision was to create a brand which is bigger than what all of us know today. So we invested heavily into showrooms which were made of Italian marbles, Swarovski lights, the best of the best that the world had to offer. We got designers from Europe to design the jewelry, and nobody used to walk into the showrooms. The showrooms were absolutely empty because people got intimidated. People thought these swank looking showrooms are probably not meant for us. And everybody was thinking, what do we do? There's so much of investment that has gone into it. One Sunday morning, few of us were sitting in Bangalore. And a very junior person who today heads one of the healthcare companies, one of the largest healthcare companies, was actually our client servicing agency from Lintas. And he made a very innocuous point, which looked like innocuous at that point. He said, the reason people don't buy jewelry from the Tatas is everybody has bought jewelry from their family jewelers. And family jewelers are trusted. Your grandmother buys, then your mother buys from them, then you buy. And for 3 generations, you buy jewelry as part of your wedding trousseau. And in India, we actually buy it also as an investment option. It will help us in rainy day. So nobody wants to shake that foundation. At that moment, we realized the biggest strength that the Tatas had was trust. How would you use this trust to really move people towards you, something that's actually worked against you? And right out of that place where we were having breakfast, we stepped out. We took a printout on a piece of paper and created a term called carat meter. Because carat is used to measure jewelry, right? Gold purities. And we had an X-ray spectrometer at the factory because Tatas were very careful that if they're making a jewelry, if they're promising something, you can deliver slightly higher than that, but not lower than that. We pasted the name on that machine and placed it and invited people to just come and test the purity of their jewelry. We said, hey, listen, the same person you have been trusting for 3 generations might be actually cheating you for 3 generations. You don't believe us? Suddenly I got a panic call saying there's a lot of people outside the showroom. I said, not possible. Nobody used to walk in, like 5 people used to walk in a month. What has happened suddenly? And we went there and saw there were people who had come to test their jewelry. They realized 22 carat was sold as 18 carat. They started throwing the jewelry back at the jewelers, and it had created a ruckus. And the entire Sarafa market had come down there, which used to sell jewelry, saying, who's this Priyadarshi Mahapatra? If he doesn't stop it, we'll make sure he doesn't leave this place alive. At that moment, it stuck that fundamentally, if you have to change consumer behavior, challenge them on what they have always believed to be right because they don't know anything else. And this to me, while we were not entrepreneurs at that moment, we were employees, was truly an entrepreneurial moment because then we positioned Tanishq on purity. And today, you know, it's a $2 billion plus brand, significantly bigger than most other brands and bigger than the watch that they created. And this happened because somebody sitting out there, not based on hierarchy, not based on position, very, very carefully observed a need in the market, challenged the ongoing trend, which is always trust the family jeweler, and said, how do we go against this trend to create an opportunity? The second story I want to share with you is when I was in Microsoft. I used to head Microsoft's consumer business, and the biggest challenge for me was piracy. Because 90% of the genuine Microsoft Office revenue was actually pirated in India. You go to the Nehru Place in Delhi, you will see floppies being made, right? There was no way you could get people to pay for it. And whatever you do, carrots, sticks, you try, you tell people, I'll remove you out of the channel system, they didn't care because customer was willing to use a pirated software. Unlike Japan and all, where ethically they don't go for pirated products, in India, even educated people believe that it's okay if I've got something free. In fact, when I took up the position, the first thing I did was I called up my wife and said, that office which is running in our home computer, who did you buy it from? And she said, I have no idea. At that moment, I realized probably I'm a victim of something that I'm going to fight against. We actually got inspired from a moment with the Bollywood industry. And we said, Bollywood has actually changed the way pirated movies are done by making sure the movies are free. You can get it at dirt cheap price on CDs. But they started selling the IPs. to different distribution companies and received the revenue even before somebody could do it free. And when you give something for free, why would anybody pirate? So we went to the three largest PC manufacturers, HP, Lenovo, and Dell, and told them, what if I offer you a price which is 1/10 of what you were paying Microsoft? But every PC that leaves the factory has to come preloaded with the Office software. When I went and proposed this in Seattle, there was ruckus. They said, Office is our holy cow. Who even allowed you to decide on pricing of Office? I said, this pricing, give me 1/10 of this price and I'll make sure the revenue that you get will be 100x more because every PC will go with an authentic, genuine product. And trust me, customers didn't want a pirated product. They just wanted something for free. Today, if you walk into any of the large retail stores, you will see there are devices which says officially installed Microsoft Office. So you don't have to buy a pirated product. This was again a moment of entrepreneurship because somebody identified that don't go and fight against pirates. In fact, turn the story on its head. If they are getting it free, you give it free, let somebody else pay for it. Eventually, the customer wins. We didn't start a company to do that. We were part of an established company. But identifying that thought and putting your mind around it is what changed. And that is why I always believe entrepreneurship is not about creating an idea, going for funding and starting a company. It's about that mindset where you observe what are the challenges, figure out is there an opportunity in solving this challenge, and then do it in a manner which is both profitable and scalable. My last example before I hand over to my good friend Sabya is about what I did at CureBay. CureBay was born when I was at Google, and this was the peak of the pandemic. This was the time when even domestic helps and security guards were not coming home. Complete lockdown. The only time we used to step out was to hit those plates, the sounds we used to make with the utensils, right? I had a bit of a health issue at home. I didn't know what to do because you could not step out. And for everything at that point, if you're stuck, Google Helpline was something that will help you. So I got a helpline. They said, don't worry. For the management, we have tie-up with private hospitals that will help you. 3:00, one of the private hospitals was supposed to call me. 2:30, 2:45, I got a call saying, can we have your Skype ID? I almost burst out laughing. I said, you know what? I used to head Microsoft. Skype used to be part of my product portfolio. My team used to sell it. I don't Skype ID. So I don't know who in today's day and age is triggered so many thoughts in my mind that living in Gurgaon, which has some of the best healthcare infrastructure, if this is what I'm going through, what is happening to the rest of the country? And that's the point when I realize India has amazing world-class healthcare infrastructure, but almost all of them are in the top 8 cities or state capitals, at most catering to 300 to 350 million urban, semi-urban population. There are 1 billion people in this country who live in what we call as Bharat, emerging India, rural India, and all of them are dependent on public healthcare infrastructure for their basic needs. Government has done a phenomenal job in creating a 5-tiered distribution of healthcare in India. District headquarter hospitals, CHCs, PHCs, sub-centers, Asha Anganwadi layer. But as a country, the problem we have not been able to solve is to ensure the availability of doctor in all these facilities. As a result, what happens when a person in rural India has a health issue and goes to a PHC and doesn't find a doctor, they actually go to a medicine shop. The medicine pharmacist behaves like a doctor and gives them medicine. In fact, some of us would have also gone through that experience. The challenge in rural India is these people are not even pharmacists. They're a local trader who has got access to capital and opened a shop. And he behaves like a doctor and hands over a medicine which 9 out of 10 times is antibiotic. The patient doesn't know, they don't even have a course. Dangerously, rural India is becoming antibiotic resistant. And they don't travel to district headquarter hospitals, not so much because of commercial impact, but because of the experience, because India has a very large informal network of healthcare dalals or brokers. They get trapped with these people with the promise that they will get immediate medical attention, and they're taken to places where they end up spending money. This was a problem impacting 1 billion people, and when I decided to solve for it, everybody told me, you're going to fail. For 3 reasons. First, rural India doesn't pay. They're looking for free services from government. Second, no investor will back you. Rural India is not the trend of the season. People are looking at deep tech, AI, and all other kind of thing. Third, you want to start in Orissa? They laughed. They said investors will not even go for board meeting to Orissa. If you want to really do this, be in the hub of places where you can attract capital. I decided to go against all the three norms. Solve for rural healthcare, solve using technology, and ensure that every investor comes to Orissa, because I'm going to set it up in Orissa and do all the board meetings in Orissa. The challenge was, how do you do it? Because this is not about teleconsultation. Teleconsultation doesn't solve for healthcare. This was about disrupting the last mile of full stack healthcare. And to do that, we had to use really deep technologies and do three innovations. One was the model itself, where we created a hybrid model, where there was a network of clinics on one end, and there was a tech infrastructure on which the healthcare ecosystem participated: hospitals, doctors, labs, pharmacy. Then we ensured the community participated in this opportunity by selecting people from the community as Swasthya Mitras and empowering them with technology which they could then take to the doorstep of people, because in rural India, trust and credibility is more than healthcare. And the third was, how do you really innovate for the people? I have to tell you one thing here, all of us are privileged. If we have a health issue, our friends, family, peer group will tell us, forget everything, forget about the meeting, forget about everything, take a day off, go and meet the doctor. Health is priority. When they have a health issue, the first thing they debate about is, I will lose a day of income. Should I go today? Should I go tomorrow? Can I procrastinate? And this leads to rural India seeking healthcare when the condition is already acute or chronic. How do you move them on a preventive journey? And we created a disruption there where we allowed people to proactively seek healthcare and move them on a journey by creating a product called Kavach, which holistically solved their healthcare needs. I'll not go into details of that, but the power that rested here was, I'll just end with one example. If you see people in rural India, they chew betel nut. That leads to oral cancer. And when the pain happens, they can't open their jaw. They start eating more betel nuts because it acts as an anesthesia. It numbs the pain. They actually aggravate the cancer. We got a product by which you could screen them and sense, are there a high-risk case? And then not just create fear, but send them to a clinic where a human being handholds them through the journey and says, don't worry, we can solve for it. The second example is breast cancer. Do you know that in India, if breast cancer is diagnosed early, 95% success rate? But the mortality in India is 50%, which means 1 in 2 people die, because no early detection happens, and people in rural India, because of social reasons, say, we don't want to know if we have breast cancer. We created a method by which no touch and feel, they could walk in, they could be screened, and then we told them, listen, nothing to worry. You be in the village, we'll handhold you and bring the ecosystem to your doorstep to solve. Started small. Today in Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, 800,000 people have received healthcare from us. And we believe from Orissa, we are solving for the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. Really fortunate to be part of this August gathering. My name is Sabyasachi Patnaik. I've been in the tech industry for the last 28 years now. Started off with HCL Tech, then with Infosys, and then became an entrepreneur in 2007. That was a time when the subprime crisis in the US had hit the industry big time. There was a financial meltdown. And here in a place like Bhubaneswar, we were starting off with a software services company in the financial services space. Not quite the right way and to start a business, but we stuck to it. We thought if our intention is correct and we kind of do the right things, we'll be able to kind of come out of the woods, right? So, but one thing that I want to share, in fact, there are again 3 things that I'll share, not as stories, but just some nuggets of wisdom, if you will. First is, the common denominator in every entrepreneur's journey is hard work, right? I mean, no matter where you are, what you have done, or what you're planning to do, there is no substitute to hard work. I mean, and very few people would agree that the quickest way to make money is to just buy a lottery ticket and wait, for you to be lucky, right? But I think if you follow the path of making money, most likely you'll fail, right? You'll not be able to succeed. But if you start in the direction of creating value, money will follow, right? And that's something that I have learned the harder way. I have seen a lot of successful entrepreneurs during the last so many years in my entrepreneurial journey, and and most important is never to give up on the big picture, right? I mean, you have to really, you'll have to start thinking that what is your core intent, why you are in this business, right? And then, these days everybody is thinking of instant, gratification, and they lose out on the big picture. You have to have that trust that things take time to materialize, and when it's just like planting a seed and waiting for it to grow, right? You don't really have to dig it up every other day to see whether it has grown or not. That way it will never grow. And then the last but not the least, that you have to enjoy what you're doing, right? And my good friend of mine had told me earlier that if you enjoy what you do, you don't work at all, right? And that's exactly what an entrepreneurship will teach you over time. And it's not about learning, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass, right? It's all about learning to dance the drain, So um, that's actually what we all have learned as entrepreneurs, and we are here to share what we can, to help you in your journey as entrepreneurs. And I think the discussion will not end here with this meeting. If you want to reach out to us, we all are available. So any which way, through email, phone, I think this is the platform for you to really get the most out of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to our all speakers who would be guiding you. I'll be requesting we will start from this table as cited that the 100 seconds breakup, you all have understood the breakup part. 20 to 30 seconds about you and your organization. One question, one suggestion. That's all. And we will start from this table. It will continue like this. Z motion, we can go. Can we start from you?
Hello everyone. Very good morning to all the startup colleagues here and the dignified guests on the dais. Myself, Yuvraj Harichandan. I come, so we are a startup known as Arkan Motors. So we are an EV manufacturing startup, and this is my team. We come from an experience from the automotive industry. So basically we are manufacturing smart electric three-wheelers, and more ever to homegrown indigenous development of EV subsystems, and more primarily towards the powertrain systems. And we are happy to share that we are Odisha's first indigenous EV traction motor manufacturers that too in a patented technology. So my challenge would be sharing about starting our industry in Odisha, specifically that we understand that we don't have an resource gap, and in terms of talent, land, or intent, but what we lack around is towards the capital investment, as we are into the manufacturing side of it and we feel the most around it. So in the past 2 years of our experience in developing our innovation, we have faced a lot of issues
Can you come to the point, please? Because,
sorry.
time is short and everyone needs a chance.
Sure. So I'll be very specific towards it. How can we understand or attract the investment towards the capital, towards the manufacturing sector in Odisha and East India? And my suggestion towards the next topic would be if we can have an inclusive policy and incentive structure for MSMEs in the state, which will help them contribute towards the manufacturing of auto spare components, which will eventually lead a lot of OEMs to be attracted towards this part of the country.
Once again, I'd be requesting you to jot down your suggestion in the notepad too.
But when you're thinking like say so low, like maybe because I'm starting from Odisha, should I set a very low bar? So how do we set the right expectation for ourselves for growth? That's it.
Thank you so much. Please write your question.
Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Akanksha, founder and CEO of a company called Orasure. We started in 2022 and we are proud to say we have scaled our company from Bhubaneswar 1B to another, which is Brazil, and we are going global. What we essentially do is we are building a climate infrastructure for the world using sensors and IoT, and we have built a climate intelligence stack for air quality, floods, extreme disasters, and heat waves, which is the upcoming time's biggest and major problem crisis every cities and governments are facing. So what we are trying to do here with a team of about 50 people, scientists, data analysts, is to understand the problem before it happens and help the government know about these problems and how to tackle them using technology. So that is what we essentially do. We're working with the big leading companies like Google, Adani, L&T, and so on. But what we essentially are looking forward is one of our biggest customers are government bodies, because at the end they are only implementing policies in the domain of be it air quality or disaster management. But for a startup, we are a 100 crore startup now, but of this size also, it's a challenge working in very big turnkey projects. We collaborate with big organizations, and that way our end solution is not reaching to the grounds. So we wanted to know, like, how do we get the right access to work on government projects, critical projects, and get an opportunity in Odisha government as well as Indian national government. Thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen, esteemed entrepreneurs and everyone. And in interest of the time, I need to keep the question very curtailed. I can see the ma'am watching the watch to make it shorter. So I don't take much time, sir. It's been really a good privilege in the morning to listen all your experiences and to listen to all your experiences and the way you are driven to all the challenges. It's been really inspiring story of you, sir. The way you started from Titan to Cure Bay and all the Kakodkar sir and what he has done, everything. So my simple question here is, sir, we being either a startup or a business or anything which we go into, the main challenge today the youth or anyone is facing is competing with the bigger ones. So let me say, sir, in fact, if I start a theoretical example, if I start something with the same concept which Cure Bay works, I cannot directly go and head on head with the Cure Bay because of the experiences and everything which he has. And at the same time, the things are very huge and at the same time costlier for the younger ones to go on. Here, sir, myself, Sri Krishna Ganamani, Managing Director of Sri Aprajita Enterprises, and providing the solutions in the logistics sector as well as in the healthcare sector. The main challenge which I am facing is identifying the space which I can enter. Because for every minute solution, let it be sustainable or let it be trivial, for every solution which we try to get in, the only problem which we have is someone already doing it there at much lesser price, and just because we enter, they're doing it for much lesser and lesser prices. So here I really want your suggestions, sir, because you have various wide ranges of challenges, and let me ask you a simple question, sir. If someone posts you, a big player posts you into a post of developing a logistics sector, like you have been into Tanishq, a
Sir,
jewelry
can we
sector.
shorten it, please?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The simple is very valuable question, ma'am, because not only for myself, it is a question in the hearts of, so all that takes a second more, it is a very important question. So I request for that. So sir, if you have been posted into that kind of role, how would you help us to get into it? That's a simple answer which I'm expecting from you, sir. And sorry for extra second, ma'am. So you got the question. Yeah. And thank you entire esteemed panel for giving me this opportunity in the morning to have a good talk.
Thank you so much. Yes, please. I request you to kindly jot down your question.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kamlakant, co-founder of Gazebo Labs. It's basically a robotics and automation company, and we are currently automating the aquaculture industry. So the main problem is in aquaculture industry, the farmers face the operation cost. 50% of their operating cost goes into feed.
Services, space, or IT products and everything, be a part of NASCOM. That's where you get to interact with a lot of these people who are in the lookout for companies to invest in, right? If you are in a part of ICC, as I mentioned, it has representation from across all the industries, right? And that's where you get to interact with your peers, with people. And there is a lot of
Sir, if you allow
focus
me,
as well.
I'll just summarize.
Sure.
Sir wanted to mention that for different sectors, there are organizing bodies like CII, Confederation of Indian Industry, ICC, TIE and lot of other organizations are there. So they can handhold your, whenever you require support, they can guide you. So being a part of the organization will really boost your entrepreneurial skills. Particularly, let's say for techpreneurs, NASCOM is there, right? So that is the point, sir, for health-related sectors questions.
No, not health related specifically, but just to add to what Sabya said, very, very important thing for all of you to know as entrepreneurs is when you're speaking to an investor, find out what is their thesis. Every investor, trust me, I don't know how to make revenue, I want government to fund me, is not the best way to approach. Second, compared to the time when we were starting our ventures to now, the access by government funds through multiple bodies, including somebody like SIDBI, which we don't talk about too often, is massive. The pools of capital are bigger than funds of fund. So reach out to them with the right approach. Tell them you have a viable business model. Trust me, capital will come to you through multiple forums which are there.
Well, I have two of the suggestions to clarify that I'm far away from startup, far away from business and the world of finance. But I'm connected very deeply with research and its translation. So I respond from that perspective. To me, it looks that innovation, by its nature, you are trying to do something unique, something which other people have not done. There may be some things where it is within the existing framework of government policies, but more often than not, there will be things which are outside the framework, and the policy framework is yet to evolve. So, all I'm trying to mention is the entrepreneurship in the domain of new innovations. You always have the first mover advantage, but also you have the first mover challenges. Now it's only appropriate that the policymaker are made aware of the difficulties, challenges, and suggestions you may have. And so for that there should be a platform where, for example, this one, you are doing precisely that. So this is an activity that should be sustained and remain engaged with either the policymakers or institutions which are in the domain of supporting entrepreneurship, especially in areas which are more innovative. But having said that, as the point that was made earlier, I think it's very important. Many times, and I'm an old man, I have observed something, so don't feel bad about it. But many times, particularly the new research-driven innovation, the innovators become captive of their ideas and actually lose track of practicalities. And then get into this domain of, I have such a great idea which will shake the world, but nobody supports me. So I think there has to be a mentoring framework around, because these are the people who will actually contribute, but you have to do hand-holding, which is more, just like we're talking about hand-holding in terms of finance and other support, these are to be hand-holding at the psychological level, which is, I think, extremely important. And again, that's a collective activity which we should do. The last point that I wish to make is, when we are in innovation space, we should have some sense, there may be some innovation extremely disruptive. And so it can make very huge impact if successful. But also we should recognize that that's an uphill task. On the other hand, there could be innovation which is incremental. And So it's usually an easier thing to build business. And I think uh, there must be some, again, a mentoring where these ideas are put together. So last point, so we have this thing, the government should do, clearly government should do, policymakers should do. They should move as fast as should. But the technology is moving faster than ability of the governments to make policy. So on this aspect, the challenges will become bigger in years to come. So I think we should also learn to get going on our own steam as a collective, individually of course, and collective is a big force, and that we could probably realize. Thank you very much.
I think you have heard suggestions from two of our son of the soil success stories. Beyond this, offline you could talk with them. They have world of experience.
Sir, two important suggestions I have. He will just share it as a point.
Let me finish it. So, the second thing which I was telling is that in TEF, the Energy Forum, you could address to my director, Mr. Kailash Dalbera, after the meeting, in Delhi, what is best possible, we'll try to do. Let me give you a small example. In the petroleum sector, the 5 PSUs, they have a revolving fund of 250 crores annually for startups, innovations in the petroleum sector, energy sector. If you could directly write to them, it is a very tough competition because everybody wants funding. But just a small suggestion, anything else in Delhi, if you have, you please tell us. He is the coordinator, contact person, so that we'll try to come back to you best possible. Thank you.
So two other things that I want to highlight. I think somebody mentioned about the importance of or the advantages of speed in managing our business. So I think it will all depend on the nature of the business that you are in. If you are in technology or technology-based services, with the way things are changing, I think it will be really tough, or you'll get outpaced by not your competitors, but the technology itself, right? So I think it will be important for all of us to understand that we will have to deal with a lot of ambiguity here, right, as entrepreneurs all the time. On one hand, people argue that, if you have to be an entrepreneur, you'll have to, perhaps fail fast and fail cheap, right? So you can't afford to be losing a lot of money over a period of several years and end up with nothing, right? So on the other hand, people say that you have to be patient, you have to kind of plan for the long term, and how do you deal with it, right? So I think that's the nature of this beast, right? But I think the advantage of being an entrepreneur is that you can chart out your own path, right? And I repeat, you will have to be a part of these bodies to understand what other policies that are there. I come from the IT backgrounds and I'm part of the IT subcommittee, as I mentioned. So the government of Orissa has come up with a very solid kind of an IT policy for entrepreneurs in the state, right? Which talks about the subsidies and a lot of these benefits. And I myself was surprised when I saw the policy for the first time, and the stuff that I had missed out during my journey as an entrepreneur. So my suggestion is go through that and talk to people who are aware of all the things that the government is offering. And you will be amazed in terms of the level of competency that has been institutionalized here, not just in the state of Orissa, but pan-India. And it's just for all of us to really tap into. Thank you.
Thank you, our mentors, and thank you for your participation. Thank you for your queries. I think we have started from here, and definitely we will go further. And sir, I would be requesting you, Siddharth Pradhan, sir, that we'll be taking a moment to felicitate our wonderful mentors we have today for their valuable insights they have shared. So, sir, I'd be requesting you First and foremost, we would be felicitating. We have with us Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Anil Kakotkar, sir. Please give a round of applause, everyone. Shri Priyadarshi Mahapatra, Cure Bay, thank you for your valuable inputs. I'm sure people will be reaching you. And Shri Sabyasachi Patnaik, Take Entrepreneur. Praiseworthy suggestions. And with this, we will conclude this session. We will take some time to prepare for the formal sessions we will start. And I request all of you to be a part of the same. It will be definitely helpful. Sir, I request before dispersing, a group photo will with all 30 startups we can have. Please, everyone, kindly come and join us for a group photograph along with the dignitaries.
which has lots of pictures and priorities and SWOT analysis and all the rest of it. I'll be happy to correspond to anybody who wants further details of this. But I think that but those numbers in a way tell a very small part of the story, although they occupy a very large part of our time. So let me talk about the context in a way and what it would actually take to develop a strategic partnership between India and Indonesia in this huge sector which we call the blue economy. Talking about the blue economy is a bit like talking about outer space. There's no end to both the possibilities as well as the hurdles. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that India and Indonesia have been trying to be close partners since the Bandung Conference in 1955. We don't have any major issues with each other. We have more than 2,000 years of free, etc., etc., etc. But the feeling both in Delhi and in Jakarta is that we are always closer and closer, but we never actually connect. So we have parallel lines which are very close. And so even talking about a strategic partnership and a compact on something so difficult like the blue economy makes us realize that we have to go beyond the numbers. And of course, trust is the key here, because you cannot talk about a long-term partnership if you have a whole series of issues which are likely to derail it in mid-context, as it were. So I think that is really quite important. The second question is, why have we arrived at this great hope called the blue economy now? The blue economy has been around at the time of independence. We could have started with a focus on aquaculture and coastal areas and et cetera, et cetera. Why is it now? And one of the reasons is that both India and Indonesia are pretty rapidly rising middle-income powers. And what they are trying to show is that 100 years after independence, they're already going to be in the club of developed countries. That's the context. Now, but that leads to some very interesting things. The first thing is that they have to set pretty ambitious targets. For example, in Indonesia, currently aquaculture and the output from the blue economy contributes about 2.5% of GDP. The target for 2045 is that it will contribute 15% of GDP, which will make it a very major contributor to the... So there are these, given that there are not that many years to go, these targets are very, very high. And they're high because when you look at the areas in which the relevance of the blue economy spreads out, it's almost everything. First of all, it's food security, it's nutrition, it's a way to handle a still growing population for another 20 years. These are also, it's a way to manage poverty, because many of the people involved in aquaculture are small fishing communities, etc., etc. Then, of course, we have environmental issues relating to the green economy. We have issues relating to tourism and a new sector opening up there. We have issues relating to maritime security, because we can't really talk about a common compact if it can be derailed by trade which is blocked by security issues. We have issues of technology, like the exploration of deep ocean for minerals and so on, which might be critical to the manufacture of artificial intelligence technologies and many others. So it spans everything, and yet the target is very, very ambitious. The thing that would give, in a sense, both countries a lot of hope is that, well, we know each other very well. We have been together for over 2,000 years. And so there is tremendous bank of good feeling, if you like. And yet, even there, we haven't really done too much work on this because it's not considered to be something that we deal with in a modern context. It is something that we use when we want to feel good about each other. But the actual work done on it is still pretty small, as it were. Now, given that we have, just worked back a bit, another important context here is what is happening to the global economy and global political system right now. The first thing is that we have a unipolar system which is in decline. We have a multipolar world which is arising. The question is, how many of those poles will there be in Asia? Will there be a new world where you just have China and the US? Or will there be an Asia will be 2 or 3 different poles? And one of the things which drives this vision in the background for many people that I know is the possibility of an India-Indonesia compact as one of the poles which will counterbalance China. So China is a big elephant in the background, but we don't talk about it, even in the context of the blue economy when we are looking at this. But becomes important because China is a major operator in the context of the blue economy, and we can't make our own plans without really knowing what our competitors, and both in with any field you talk about, whether it is energy, whether it is geopolitics, whether it is security, whatever. So in a way, these are partial visions, these are best case scenarios that we have constructed. But the reality is that for India and Indonesia to connect much better, the idea is that Asia will at least have 2 poles, and together they will have 60% of the global population. They've never fought a major war together, etc., etc. Now, the reason I mention this is because any notion of a close compact on the blue economy invariably means doing a number of things together. It's not only about promoting aquaculture, where in India, of course, it had an amazing performance of raising its overall output by more than 188% in a matter of 10 years. But for the compact to work together, a number of things have to come together simultaneously. And let me give you just 2 or 3 examples. The first thing that really has to come together is maritime security. We cannot talk about trade, investment, technology, and so on, unless there is free movement of goods and people and so on in the Indian Ocean region and Indo-Pacific, as we see it now in the Mahasagar. So it's not the aquaculture so much. The enabling condition, it has to be maritime security. And the moment we look at Indonesia and India, we immediately have a problem. The problem is that Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago. It has 17,000 islands, and it has close to 100,000 kilometers of coast compared to 7,500 in India. It is a total archipelago. So you would expect that it will have a very strong maritime security force, both in terms of inter-island connectivity and protection and so on. And it doesn't. The second thing is that all the seas between Indonesia islands are all national territory. And so that's also part of the policing mechanism that it has to develop. Now, if you take that, you would assume that the Indonesian defense and security budget as a share of GDP would be very high because it has rather singular problems for managing a territory the size of this. But you'll be surprised to know that the proportion of the defense budget to GDP is less than 0.8%. And there are lots of reasons for that, and I won't go into that, but it's part of that context. Realizing that over the last 20 years, Indonesia has had a transformation that people like me and others say that it's a transformation from a caterpillar to a butterfly. They're different things. So whenever we talk about this compact and strategic linkages and so on, we need to realize the potential of the blue economy, but also realize what it would take to achieve it in terms of institutional connections, in the field of learning and human development, in the field of new experiences in tourism, and so on and so on. So context becomes important. Understanding how we got to the point where we are today, why after 50 years, after 70 years after independence, we are now suddenly waking up to the fact of this great potential that is just there if we could only go and grab it, and we will immediately move from 7% growth to 10% and whatever we want to say. So I think we have to be careful here. The final broad point that I want to make is that some of the areas of cooperation that we could trigger by looking at the blue economy, possible blue economy contact, are also the areas in which, even in a multipolar world, we will have to work together. We have a strange dichotomy here. The moment many of the globalization has declined, some of the international rules which underpinned it are in difficulty, some of the institutions are being wound down, and we are therefore all running to see where we could be self-sufficient. So we immediately talk about, self-sufficiency in food, we talk about energy security, we are jacking up our defense budget and so on. These are inward-looking kind of policies where we are worried about security of basic needs. So that's on one side. On the other side, all the problems of the future and the possibilities of the future, of which blue economy is one, whether we are looking at AI, whether we are looking at technological research, whether we are looking at the control of international pandemics and so on, require collective work. So there are areas where the focus is self-sufficiency and security, and there are areas where we have to work together in order to enhance our technological capability, in order to bring forward new technologies and new processes and so on, which also will help us raise productivity. The blue economy largely is expanding the production frontier, if you like. We are, in a way, these are the low-hanging fruits. But then comes the issue of how do you actually raise productivity, and there I think connecting in terms of AI, for instance, Indonesia now is considered to be one of the sort of very sharply rising countries with AI capability, for instance, and human capital which is related to that. So to connect on the blue economy, we also have to connect through institutions, through technologies, through history, and a much greater knowledge of what the packet is, in the sense that when we look at the projections of the blue economy, what we find is that we basically have a straight line approach. We look at where we are, and then we go to our endpoint 2045, 47. But it's not like that. What we have is evolving packages. So the way we need to think about it is to say, well, we are in 2025, so what are the moving parts which will change in the next 3 years? What are the moving parts which will change in 10 years after that? So we need to have this, a very different approach. And at the moment where we are is that we have a very large number of numbers. How many ports, how much fish we are going to catch, how many different destinations for tourists we would have, how would we move the people. These are all very practical concerns and totally valid, but need to be put against something which is moving all the time, not only because the blue economy's own mechanisms and access and so on are changing, but also because our own domestic agenda against which these ambitions are put themselves are evolving. And so it's a very complicated field because you're not talking about some kind of a standard production possibility frontier that you can move up and down on. It's really a building where the structure is changing as we move along. So I want to leave it at that. I urge you to look at this 25-slide presentation that we had put together. It gives you all the output numbers and the SWOT analysis and a summary of Indonesia's roadmap on the blue economy, gives you a summary of Indian thinking on this subject, gives you an idea of all the main strategic directions and possibilities and so on. But what we cannot cover there are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Is the context, is the fast evolving situation in the global political system, in the international set of rules, in the maritime security and movement through trade routes, etc., which is a starting point in a way before we can actually get down to all the bits and pieces that we need to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Satish Mishra. That was indeed bringing us culturally aside. And as you said, India and Indonesia have been culturally together for years. And here, when the Honorable Prime Minister visited Jakarta a few months back, in fact last year, he had occasion to remember of the ancient tradition of Bali Jatra, which actually starts from this ancient land of Kalingas. Your concepts on blue economy going beyond, it's very fascinating, and I want the audience to understand. I often say this, man's foray into space and man's foray into water have been kind of distinguished by one of adventurism, such as we have Endeavour, which has crossed what is called the solar system, beams back signals to tell us as to how a spacecraft can go billions of miles. And here, in the waters of the oceans, we are yet to develop a vehicle which can go down to the depths of the Marina Trench. So that's very fascinating to understand, while man's association with water is very, very intrinsic. If it wasn't for water, it wasn't for the way the industrial region changes. And now, when at the inflection point that the world is today, on an energy transition, on a technology transition, and sir, I must thank you for bringing the focus back on a multipolar world which is changing, geopolitics which is evolving, and the necessity for India and Indonesia to discover what the audience does know, and I wish to remind them, the energy security that Indonesia gives to India in terms of, let's say, availability of coal, and the fact that some of the busiest maritime trade routes, such as the Malacca Straits, are privy to where Indonesia stands, and what an archipelago, 17,000 islands, 100,000 kilometers of coastline. The blue economy, and along with the oceans decade that UN says, we have to protect 30% of the oceans. I think the start is. Thank you so much for a very enlightening visit. May I now request my friend Ajay to take us into something more important. Trade routes, geopolitics. What are the new routes? You can take that. He also has a presentation. When we talk of new routes, we are aware that the IOR region is, as I said, the Malacca Straits, the Suez Canal, the entry, the ambition of India to go into the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, which was announced on the sidelines of G20, a very fascinating INSTC that is emerging now. I would now request Ajay, my friend, to take us through what is the challenge that new geopolitics throws about, and how do we weave ourselves into this not only a multipolar world, one where trade is going to distinguish, and the fact that it has. Over to you, Ajay, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman, my dear friend Subrat, for your kind good words. Can I have my presentation, please? Good morning, everyone. And I'm very happy to be here today in my own state. And Odisha, being a state of a maritime state, which embodies a lot of activities in this part, and which will aspire all of us to really go through here. Today, I want to discuss something which is very vital for India's strategy, geopolitics, and economic development in coming days. The theme of our gathering is connecting the eastern border with Southeast Asia and Indo-Pacific in larger sense. And why you are talking about this? We're talking about integration, sustainable growth, and role as a stabilizing force in Asia-Pacific. And that's what actually India should look at. So over the next 15-20 minutes, I had planned for 30 minutes, we'll explore how waterborne transport and the corridors are transforming Asia and how it is positioning India and Odisha in the larger sense, including our northeast and the region. And okay. So let me just give you kind of a global context. So as Chairman mentioned that this part of the world, Asia specifically, is one of the fastest and largest maritime infrastructure and activity state in the world. As per Momentum 2025, Momentum is the world's largest supply chain conference which happens every year in Las Vegas. It is declared that out of 10 ports in world, 8 of them are located in this region and 5 of them are in China. If you look at Tianjin, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, they are all in 5 in China, and you can imagine why. Then you have Busan in South Korea, you have Singapore and Dubai. Out of 10 largest port, which was not there in 20 years ago, is now the happening place. Why it is happening? And you can imagine that there are several factors, but 3 important factors are, one is actually the sheer volume of trade which is happening. The number 2 is technological advance which is happening in this part of the world, not in the other parts. And third is actually what we are doing pivot, intention of regional development. All countries in Southeast Asia, including East Asia or North Asia, are gearing up towards actually maritime development or regional development. And what happened actually, this maritime, when you do a corridor development, thank you. So when you develop a corridor, it essentially helps in reducing the transit cost. Imagine your cargo is going from Paradip or Calcutta to Colombo, then again unloading and loading into, coming back to Singapore or going to even Myanmar, coming back into some part of the India also. So that's the kind of thing you need a corridor development. Very recently we had a maritime week in Mumbai. And what you see actually, we got almost 12 lakh crore of commitment from international investors. And this is not simple, just an investment. It is a commitment, it is an understanding of the world's investors into the Indian market and the maritime trajectory. That's very important for us. Very recently in September, we signed an agreement with Singapore, which is called Green and Digital Initiatives on Maritime Sector. What does it mean, green and digital? This is going to help us modernize our ports, help us have low emission fuels which will be sustainability. It also helps in capacity building, it also helps the Indian maritime sector to modernize to the level which the world is required in coming days. Now let's come to the India part, why India is so important and in this part. So I believe that India, after China, is going to be the next happening place in maritime infrastructure. Be it is Indo-Pacific, when you look at all the oils, the Indian Ocean, as you said, that Malacca Bay and also South China Sea, everything included here. 80% world traffic flows in this part of the world. And India being strategically, geographically located with 7,500 coastline, which is one of the largest in terms of the coastline, with 9 maritime states and 5 union territories. They combine with 2 island union territories, Lakshadweep and Andaman Nicobar Island, which are developing very fast actually, is going to give India a boost in coming days. And you know that we have major ports, 12 major ports, including one actually the private or company port like Ennore Port. We still have a number of new ports coming, as you mentioned that yesterday, that Vadhavan Port is coming up near Mumbai, Bahuda Port is coming in Odisha, which will be a purely container port for eastern coast. Then we have another port, Pradharapatnam, coming in Andhra Pradesh. So these are number of government initiatives. This is besides actually ports which are like large ports, which much bigger than sometimes the major ports like Dhamra. If you look at coming up, Tata's in Kirtania, then you have Gopalpur. Then you have Mundra and various other ports in the west coast also. Those are also aspects which the private sector coming in. The other aspect is actually when you talk about BIMSTEC, which is 7 states, Bay of Bengal initiative for a multi-sectoral initiative, which is basically looking at technical and economic cooperation in these 7 states, all these Bay of Bengal states, including Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand, is going to really take it to the different level. We signed very recently a transport agreement amongst the BIMSTEC. We also have a master plan ready, which will be signed very soon in the next meeting. So that's actually going to be really a new initiative in cooperation for Southeast Asia and open up to further to South China and to the East Asias. Then we talk about a little bit of there's something we need to discuss about port management and governance. This is very important for the investors. The policy, planning, and the acts, it's very important for the international investor to understand, which means it brings clarity. If there is no clarity in the policies, plans, or acts, investors always will shy away from the development or putting the money. So therefore, it is essential that we need to really look at how we need to bring these things. We have major ports. If you look at total traffic, we handle in India almost 1,800 million metric ton, out of which if you see it's a very synergy, Private sector and major ports, they almost balance it out more or less. So that's actually synergy. The ports when they were built actually, the private sector ports came in. Initially it was threat to the major ports. I don't want to discuss, my friend is here, he was in major port chairman, he was also private sector chairman, So we have seen actually as a consultant from outside, the threat, the perception that private sector is going to take out something, but it's actually not true. The private sector, this is actually the cooperation and coordination between the private sector ports and the public sector ports. It's not necessarily like cannibalized, It's basically to support each other and help the growth or ecosystem to go much beyond that. But at times, if you look at the ports which were built earlier, it was like cargo, a port is built, cargo is handled, and then port move on. There is no development actually happening. But in coming days, what is happening actually, so we brought in a number of new initiatives, which is central government. So this is one of the initiatives, Sagarmala project. This is not really a port or shipping project. It's basically changing the total scenario of how the port should work. The backward, the hinterland part was never connected. Sagarmala is brought in actually industry-based port development and corridor development on the land basis. We have an industrial corridor came in, connecting Mumbai to Delhi and Amritsar to Howrah, then East Coast Chennai to Howrah, and number of those corridors came up. And during this 2020s, when Bajpayee time, that was the first time all ports east-west it was connected. And that is why the development, Sagarmala came in after that. That brought in domain-specific or industry-specific development in the port. For example, Paradip. Paradip is petrochemical, chemical investment region. Same thing, textile or automobile. Chennai became the automobile hub. Then you have a Mundra area, which is again another specialized hub. So those are the areas which is developed part of the Sagarmala project. And this is basically change, and that's a transformative. And Sagarmala, what it brought in actually, it brought in one aspect which was never there connected. It was called inland water transport. Bringing, for example, Talcher, if you take coal or bring also some materials from Dhamra to Paradip, it can be navigable, which is very important. Same thing in coal transportation from Farakka to Haldia. Same thing in northeastern, Brahmaputra. Taking cargo from India to Sitway via Kaladan to Mizoram, to Nagaland, to Manipur. And that's the kind of development we are looking at, in Sagarmala project. So this is IWT system. Then the next is actually how BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is actually, I mentioned the Kaladan project, which is undergoing on. because of Arkansas Raccoon province, we still have some issues in transportation. That will bring actually, right now it is Calcutta to Situi to Kaladhan to the northeast. That's the next transit corridor which will connect to Thailand, Myanmar and other countries. But obviously when you go, this project get connected, Paradip could be another location which will be connected to directly to northeast. And BIMSTEC. Also, you know, these days, if you ask me 20, 25 year, what is the year is all about? It's all about FTA. Everywhere is FTA sign. So BIMSTEC and India is going to sign an FTA. That means 7 states will have a free trade agreement, just like in other places, all happening. So this is also another one important aspect. Very interesting if you know that, if you have gone through 2026, the ASEAN has declared the maritime year of cooperation with India. That's actually going to give you a leverage for India to come in the next 10 years and their corridor and future development. Now let's go to the next strategic corridors which have been developed. So when I mentioned to you India-Singapore digital and green corridor. This is very, very important for us to take our ports into new generation, new areas. Whenever green steel makes, when you have hydrogen, you have CNG fuels, or you have LNG fuels which is going to really power all your ships, that's where actually this is going to really help, including the digitalization of our ports. Chennai-Vladivostok corridor is so important actually. You imagine that your entire cargo, instead of going to Colombo or another transshipment port to, let's say, Beijing, it can go directly from here through Chennai. Of course, coastal shipping will be there. It can directly go to Japan, directly go to Korea, it can go to the eastern part of Russia. Very importantly, I don't know how many you follow this year, joint declaration between Modi and Putin summit very recently. There was a point there that Russian Federation is going to train over thousands of merchant navy personnel for them to be equipped to sail through the Arctic routes. So Arctic route is going to be the most important, with all Western hegemony going through Suez Canal, Mediterranean and all to Western Europe. It can go directly through polar routes, and that's going to really change the face of the Indo-Pacific in coming days. So similarly, so these corridors are not just a corridor, it are also economic integration and regional development for the region. And simply, this is not going to really a military thing, this is a geostrategy, and this is going to really a economic boom for the maritime sector, and that will bring all kind of a sustainable development. So what is the economic impact that's going to bring maritime sector? So there are a number of factors: quality of a good infrastructure, regional integration, and Northeast India's emergence into the global market, which was not there happening actually, as I mentioned to you, those aspects. Now, why Odisha? I mentioned to you that we have already 2 large major ports is going to be there. Next one, Bauda is coming. Then we have 3 private sector large ports. No, now it is Adani, of course. The Gopalpur port, and then Dhamra, then now is Kirtania, which is coming by Tata Steel. These are 3 major, 3 private sector large ports, besides 2 major ports. That's actually one aspect. Then you have other deep water ports coming in Tajpur near Digha. Then future other development, inland transport, coast-based development, industrialization in PCPR like in initiative. Those are things which are going to bring in the coastal areas more catering to these corridors. So that's very important for us. And Orissa, as I mentioned to you that also, we need also to develop some of the cruise terminal. Puri cruise terminal could be one of the change in those areas actually. Then we have brought a number of acts or policies which Orissa government need to really follow in the coastal shipping and inland water transport, which is not happening that much. But I think that's what we need to really work on. So as we conclude towards the development in the corridors, I like to bring in a few areas like transport and things. So those are actually maritime corridors require investment, not just government funding, but we need a private funding, which is coming very well. So we need a long-term actually plan, not a 5-year plan, it's really a 20 years commitment. And that will bring in actually, in return, prosperity. It will bring in influence in the region. It will help you build the equity in those Indo-Pacific region. And these are three keys: equity, influence, and your, what you call prosperity. These three things is going to bring if these corridors are developed well. Now, I'd like to thank you for the time that you gave me. But the vision which I have led, this is not just vision, these are infrastructure or development master plan. So let's build this Indo-Pacific where water trade or waterborne transport is going to take the new leap. And let us not see Odisha, Northeast are just states. They are the gateways to the world in terms of trade and economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It does deserve a very resounding recognition of your abilities, your experience in the field, and the fact that you've sustained yourself in ocean management for years is reflective, certainly in your presentation. I take a cue basically to say that equity and prosperity and sustainability, very key kind of drivers for the new economy to emerge. And thank you, Ajay, for this very wonderful presentation. I'm sure the audience will have much to ask you, especially on the trade routes. Well, I'll have a question, why Chennai, Vladivostok, and how do you look at Vizhinjam? But I'll come back to you. And how do you look at, I'm kind of provoking you to keep your answers ready, is Galthia and Wadhwan, and how do you look at them in the integral chain in the IOR Indo-Pacific region? Thank you so much for that. So equity and inclusiveness. We are aware of what the oceans can do for us. The fact that they also absorb nearly 80 to 85 or nearly 90% of the heat of the earth, and they dissipate it from the equator to the poles. But while the poles kind of start reducing, they open up a new transport, as Ajay referred to the Arctic route. But I would rather that the Arctic continues to be as pristine as it is, and the routes are through the other trade routes are continuous as they were. We have with us Mr. Gurung from the beautiful land of Bhutan, which Honorable Prime Minister visited a short while ago, and spoke of the great people-to-people contact between the state of Bhutan, its geographical position in the northeast, and when we look at the Seven Sisters and Sikkim, we also look at Bhutan as being a very integral part of this identity that India and Bhutan share together. A land of mystic, a land which is very beautiful. I'm sure Mr. Gurung after this will invite us to come and visit the beautiful land of Bhutan. He's a self-made entrepreneur, somebody who is very passionate about his work, talks about sustainability as the key to taking forward what his initiative. May I, Sri Gurungji, welcome you to this beautiful land of Odisha in India and ask you to take us through into what you think sustainability is.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair. So I'd actually written a detailed speech before coming to Odisha. But after listening to so many great experts and leaders, business leaders and scholars yesterday, I had to change everything, And it's truly been a very humbling experience for me. Every session, the insights that the experts shared was a learning experience, but also left me with a very deeper questions. I often find myself asking, is growth alone is what we really seek at the end of the day? And the chair talked about the beautiful relation that India and Bhutan has. And that is solely because partnership works if policies talk to each other, if countries talk to each other, and if people talk to each other. I have spent quarter of my life in India studying, and that is how I actually came to the idea of using waste plastic came about 20 years ago when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree in Chennai, the south of India. And I also like to share that I'm the only foreign national to be trained by the inventor himself, Dr. R. Vasudevanla. So that is the connection that I am hoping to build, not just India and Bhutan, but really the people-to-people connection. And of course, I'll keep it very short. I'm here to collaborate, cooperate, and see if we can really take, the ideas, the businesses in Odisha, in Bhutan, and if you could work together on some projects together. So I believe that there is more to Purvodaya than that. It's not just about profit, but about true profit, one that considers human values, social responsibilities, culture integrity, and environmental stewardship. I heard a great deal about policies, partnership, economic corridors, transparency, and governance. Yet, partnership cannot succeed if policies do not speak to one another. And beyond policies, trust remains the most crucial foundation of all of us. As an entrepreneur, working in the intersection of sustainability and resilience, I see the blue economy as a critical pillar of our shared future. For countries like ours, whether landlocked or coastal, it is not only about oceans, but about water security, river system, biodiversity, and a deep ecological independence we share with our neighbors. From an entrepreneurial lens, building enduring partnership in the blue economy comes with both challenges and opportunities. Differences in national priorities, access to finance and technology, complex governance of shared ecosystems often slow collaborations. Climate change adds urgency as glacier melts, extreme weather, and ecosystem degradation cuts across political boundaries. Yet there's seem challenges. It also creates space for innovation, collaboration, and new business models. I see a very strong potential in regional cooperation around sustainable hydropower, which we've already been doing. Adani was in Bhutan very recently, and I've signed a very big project. As our relationship with India go as far as 1949, when the first hydropower was set up. India is the largest trading partner for Bhutan. 90% of what we actually consume, even the dress that I'm wearing now, is imported from India. We import about 35 billion worth of groceries, including oil, vegetables, everything from India. And most of my generation, actually, probably 80% of my generation have actually studied in India. So that's the connection that we've been building for last many, many years. And you must have heard about the rail linkages that the government of India has, very generously invested in, about 8,000 crores rupees, connecting the south of Bhutan to Kokrajhar and to Samsi. A 69-kilometer railway link will be established probably and by the year 2029. So there's a lot of cooperation going on, and but for me personally, it's people-to-people connection. Trade will find its way somehow. It doesn't have to be through the river system. It is going on for a while, and I hope that it will continue go on. So as a business entrepreneur, and I constantly get reminded that although we are a landlocked Himalayan country, we are deeply connected to the Bay of Bengal through our rivers, trade networks, our partnership with India. I think what happens upstream is very crucial. For instance, I would just like to share in a very a person who is an environmental stewardship. The Bay of Bengal region is contaminated with microplastic. It's one of the highest polluted water bodies in the world now. And I was imagining that in Bhutan, fishes that we consume. But just very recently, about 2 months ago, find microplastics in fishes as well. And this is carried downstream here in the Bay of Bengal. And this is quite concerning for all of us. And I have collaboration that the two nations can work on, which I will share later. But again, having said that, I want the audience to ask me as much as possible so that I can share specific details on how we can really contribute. So my company, what it does is, it builds roads using waste plastic. I've been doing this business for the last 12 years, but like I said earlier, I was under the sole guidance of my mentor, Dr. R. Vasudevan, about 20 years ago. And we have already built 163 kilometers of road in Bhutan. We have reused over 900 tons of waste plastic. My company has employed about 65 people directly, and we have, spread across our, construction and the collection to across 13 districts in Batam. And I was in Sri Lanka very recently, about 2 weeks ago, and the government also wants to, replicate the technology of using waste plastic. And I see it happening in Odisha as well. The idea of sharing this is because I want the youth to be involved as much as possible. They are the future, and I'm willing to share the technology. I'm willing to, mentor them. I'm willing to guide them, and then see how we can really take this initiative forward. So for me, at the end of the day, it's all about collaboration. I cannot speak on policies because I'm not from the government. I'm a private individual here, and for me, it's about the aspiration of really inspired, not just to come up with a big construction company or a manufacturing unit or a recycling company in my country, but I was really dogmatic to the motivation that I wanted to create this very indigenous product for the community, for the country at large, and this is something that I like to see in Bhubaneswar and Odisha as well. I'll keep it very short. I want you all to ask as much as possible. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The sentiment that you've expressed, Sri Gurungji, about people-to-people cooperation, about collaborations that can unleash. No wonder you come from the land which has the highest gross happiness index. I think Mr. Gurung and his country deserve a round lab of capital for being the land of happiness, literally. Thank you so much for teaching the world. When we have when we have themes about, contesting and wars that divide us, here is one country that stands out extremely distinguished by its own gross happiness index. And the fact that you did speak about a very important thing about the Bay of Bengal, I want the audience to understand, as much as one of the greatest bays, which I personally believe was washed by the waters of the Kalinga Sagar, which the British named the Bay of Bengal. I don't want to sound political over there. Nonetheless, the Bay of Bengal represents nearly 30% of the world's trade, is home to some of the largest deltas in the world, washed by the BIMSTEC region, the Brahmaputra, the Ganges, and the beautiful delta which spans across the country of Bangladesh and India, the Irrawaddy Delta, the possibilities of talking of the Kaladhan project. I think water is something very fundamental to our lives and as we proceed. You also spoke about something very important about a small corridor in India. It's about Bhutan being at the apex of what is called very popular in India, the chicken neck, which determines the connectivity to the northeast. I will come back to you on that and ask you, but a disturbing trend that you have mentioned, and that's visible in the seas, about microplastics and its ability to come to the food chain. It's something that all of us have to face this challenge. How do we distinguish this and take this out, make our worlds cleaner, and bequeath to the next generation a world that we have inherited is going to be safer? Thank you, Sri Gurungji, for that. Sir, I come back to you, Dr. Satish. When you spoke, I was wondering, the two countries, India and Indonesia, ancient as they were, culturally related, also the fact they're home to some of the largest populations. We grapple with things which, in your thing about blue economy, do you think the ocean, the blue economy, could be a kind of a tool or a force that can remove poverty alleviation? I mean, when you were speaking, this thought struck me. How do we look at, through your vision, that the two countries can learn? Can we take this route for improving the quality of lives and getting out of this middle income trap that India is walking into, and perhaps Indonesia as well? Could the two countries help each other in poverty alleviation and taking the cue from blue economy? Sir, to you, sir.
Well, that's a good question. I think, as I was saying, having a common long-term view becomes very important for a kind of strategic compact that we might think of. But poverty is one of those instances where, one of those cases we can illustrate the problem. I mean, both Indonesia and India have actually brought down absolute poverty quite dramatically. And we know that. The problem always is that through subsidies and other mechanisms, we get people up to the poverty line. And so they're all hovering above the poverty line. And a single shock, whether it's a price shock or a health shock or some other shock, brings them back to absolute poverty. So now we are trying to empower the poor so they can become entrepreneurs through microfinance, through entrepreneurship, and so on and so on. But there's a very hard route, and the avenues for entrepreneurship also are determined by the context in which they operate. When you look at the blue economy possibility, that is clearly one example where aquaculture and a host of industries related to it can provide new areas where the very poor can be engaged in finding a way out of poverty which is fairly permanent rather than hovering above it. And of course, it saves government money also. It's also related to the whole concept of inequality, because the problem with inequality is that we don't have a Gini coefficient as a target. We don't say, well, if the Gini coefficient has moved from, 0.3 to 0.35, all kinds of policy mechanisms are going to step in to try to control it. And horizontal poverty, which is poverty across groups, is also a major political destabilizer. Virtually all the evidence that we have seen shows that rising intergroup, interregional inequality also creates tremendous amount of political instability. And Sanjeev Sanyal's talk yesterday was talking about Eastern India being the problem rather than, and again, the blue economy has tremendous scope in helping us try to reduce the acute poverty, lower growth rates and so on, in many areas which are coastal areas and so on, and that's especially true of Indonesia. So I think in both cases, it connects also with a domestic political and policy agenda, and that gives a longer life, if you like, in terms of sustaining a vision and so on. If I may take the opportunity to add two additional points. One is that what we have to realize is that we can talk about ASEAN forever, but the fact is that if Indonesia is not there, there is no ASEAN. That's a geopolitical fact, it's an economic fact, and so on and so on. And therefore, understanding Indonesia becomes very important. And what has happened in Indonesia is nothing less than a political and socio-political miracle in the last 20 years. Here's a country which for 40 years was under military rule, it democratized, and within 4 elections has seeded a stable democracy, which has another unique feature that whoever wins the national election, whichever president is in power and may win 60% of the vote, they go in for coalition government. We don't have the kind of acute fragmentation and almost spite across different political groups as we see here. Remarkably politically stable. Secondly, as a largest Islamic population, it could have gone the way of the Arab Spring countries. It did not. It remains a highly tolerant society. And the third thing is, it's also growing very fast. It's growing around 5.5%, 6% a year. Nobody has now predicted there will be some shock which will derail it. It has virtually no external enemies. So it is a very unique country. It's not just another statistic about how many islands it has and so on. It has gone through a very major systemic transition. And when we are talking about a compact, we better understand the way decisions are made there and how they will connect to the last point I want to make is about China. Every time I talk about Indonesia, the general reaction is, well, why do we talk about Indonesia? It's already Chinese. It also shows the level of ignorance that we have about both China and Indonesia in this context. And so my point is that a strategic alliance, if you like, or a strategic compact, which is sustained over a period of time, is a perfect counterweight to China. When you're talking about maybe a duopolar Asia, remember that India, China together, and maybe some of the countries up to Cambodia, will constitute, more than half of, together with China, more than half of the world's population. And these two poles are relatively equal. They will have similar populations. They have, by the time if we take the next 10 years, they will have the technology. They will still be at the end of their growing population stage. So it's a serious counterweight to China. And what we have to realize is that in these two poles, which is a bit like the way it used to be in the 17th and 18th century, they have never fought a major war. So this is also peaceful. It's also a vision of peace. It's not only a vision of looking after our poor or benefiting from AI or sitting and doing cooperation in climate change. All those things are there. But there is a broader vision here. And what we have to realize, and this is, sorry I've gone on so much, but absolutely the last point. We as business people or economists or people who are interested in the way processes change, we have been brought up in a system where we connect, basically draw lines. You know, we look at trends, then we worry about whether the trends are straight or whether the lines are curved and so on and so on. With the structural changes that are going on in the world economy and the political system and technology, the past is not a good guide to the future. The trends which we draw cannot be extrapolated into the future. So what we have to do is to imagine the future and then see how do we get there, rather than look at the past and simply assume that the same thing will continue. And I think that is the excitement of the blue economy. That is the excitement of talking about a strategic compact between India and Indonesia. That's an excitement about talking about how we can, instead of worrying about China, be a counterweight to it. And so I think that is the kind of discussion that, you know, what we're talking about today opens out. We need to put it in that context. And I do apologize for having talked so long.
No, thank you. I think the audience appreciates the fact that why, I'm sure you can see that it is resounding. And no wonder that you've named and you represent Arthashastra. It has been very beautifully chosen because you have touched on certain themes which the Arthashastra would actually speak on. Nonetheless, a very important point that you did make, and I think it's a takeaway, is if you look at the past and reimagine or literally imagine the future, and then the trajectory to the future, and if the past is not a guide, will be on the shoulders of a blue economy driven trade, multipolarism world that is coming. And the fact when you said the IOR region, India and Indonesia, home to large populations so similar, and no wonder that the similarity has attracted ancient Kalinga seafarers for long. And this, your coming here through Arthashastra, re-establishes a contact, and I think it's a great takeaway. Thank you so much for that. I'll come back because of paucity of time. I would have actually loved to speak a little more on Indonesia and provoke you a little. Probably I'll leave some bits for the questions to come from the audience. I'll just wait. I'll have Ajay coming in to, I provoked you on Galthia, Vizhinjam, Vadwan. How do you establish this connect between and the necessity for India becoming a China plus strategy as a manufacturing powerhouse of the world? And when you are unleashing these forces in India, and the fact that India does need to take on the curve of manufacturing if you are actually coming out of this trap of middle economy and going to be a very important player in the world, you did speak about the maritime trade. But I want to provoke you on these two questions. Do you look at Galthia, Vadwan, Vizhinjam, which is India's answer to Colombo, Port Klang, Jebel Ali together? You and I could speak a whole day on that. So over to you on that kindly.
Thank you, Subrat. Well, actually, you saw that Mumbai port is almost like a dead port other than handling very small cargo. It has moved everything containerized, JNPT. So being the western hub and connected to Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, with all industries coming up in Baroda, Surat, Hazira, and all that belt, including northern part, is going to cater to this port. I don't know how much Mundra, your port, is going to handle, and Kandla is almost congested. We need very badly a new port which can handle only box cargo, not the dirty cargo which Bombay port used to handle, and Paradip, all doing this thing. The kind of things which shifting is actually from mineral ports to, like a containerized port. Bauda, which is going to come in East Coast, our near Berhampur, Patisonapur, is going to be purely a container port. So the East Coast, we have only, Chennai is handling maybe 500,000, I don't know how much, 500,000, TU of
container, and Vizag little bit, not much. So that is one. Bellingham, your port, which Subrat is you are building, that would be purely a transshipment port, as I understand. You might correct me. But Vadhavan is basically will be an export-oriented port for Middle East, Africa, and that part of thing. These are three. But the other part, what you look at actually, why you see that 8 of the largest ports are located in Asia, not in India, not one. If India is going to be leapfrog from what we do manufacturing, port-based manufacturing like what PCPI or Automobile Hub, Chennai, and other parts in western seaboard, we need to really have those large ports. Otherwise, we cannot really do. The figure I want to give you, very important for of you. We are the second largest merchant navy in the world. But you know how much we pay? We pay almost $75 billion in chartering flights. $75 billion. And in order to reduce that, the government has come up with, subsidies, and I think all of you know, something like 40,000 crore for shipbuilders. That's one aspect. The second aspect is what we are trying to do actually, because we don't have a port to handle those parts. And we cannot blame that we are losing actually revenue. We only handle less than 10% of the total volume which is being done. We have less than 2,000 ships. We need to really build those things. We need to capture those things market. Otherwise, foreign vessels will keep on paying. These large ports is going to help you to really bring ecosystem in transshipment. Otherwise, how much we pay to the Colombo port? How much we pay to Dubai and Singapore? These are the three which entire 99% of your cargo coming to India. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting points. I just like to clarify a few things to you, Ajay. In all humility, last year in 2024, the figures for 26 financial year are still awaited. We have a very, energetic quarter coming up, and I hope trade will be certainly the driver. Now, that's a very important subject which the Purvodaya would be looking at. Very recently, Government of India has given a very great fillip to the sector by announcing some great incentives, PLI schemes, to build shipbuilding in India, because shipbuilding is a multiplier of a kind which India has not seen. And if you actually, combine shipbuilding with the larger industrialization, the forces that you will be unleashing is about 6.5 times in terms of employment. And I'm not even talking about ship repair and about ship, what we do in Alang, ship breaking, etc. But thank you for that intervention. And let me tell you about Vizhinjam, and I want the Purvodaya audience to know. Before we had a transshipment port in the shores of India, Indian feeder ships used to, because what is called a mother mainline vessel, ultra large container carriers, which carry close to about 25,000 containers, we have the ability, could not visit India, not because of depth and ability, but because there was no, there was no cargo available in one particular shipment to take it out. Come Vizhinjam port, which was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister last year, in the shores of Kerala. And this is one project that took nearly 25-30 years from conception to implementation. And Ajay, for your information, MSC Irina, the world's largest container vessel, carrying more than close to 26,000 TEUs, has made a call at Vizhinjam. And Vizhinjam is India's fastest growing port in terms of acquiring 1 million TEUs in less than 10 months, less than a year, 150 ultra large carriers. Why am I making this point? The point I'm making this is because the Purvodaya vision and the shores of Odisha, and my personal view is that the next phase of development in India, and particularly in Odisha, is going to be a port-led industrial development. And when we say port-led industrial development, we're not looking at ports per se. Ports don't stand in splendid isolation. They connect through intrinsic channels, a large connectivity. And what the DFC and the DMSI that you spoke of, a kind of a infrastructure connecting Delhi to the Kutch region, which is one of the most backward. I wish that in Odisha, economic corridors, which are pathways for development, for carrying rail, road, utility corridors connecting our ports. And at the ports, the world has seen, when you have taken over and gone, you look at Shenzhen, you look at Ningbo, you mentioned about that, and about Yangshan, you look at Hong Kong, all these ports are port-led development. And that's, I think, a great takeaway, and which I would request the Energy Foundation, Purvodaya, Siddharth sir, and everybody over here to see, that when you submit the proposals, Government of Odisha particularly is sitting on the greatest opportunity that ever beckons us today. And this opportunity is that if it is the large hinterland of Odisha, and I don't speak of the Odisha coastline, we are home to 64% of India's mineral wealth in the hinterland, which comprises both Chhattisgarh, parts of Jharkhand, parts of Bengal, and we just have to get ourselves connected and foster economic cycle of prosperity. But more to that, prosperity is something Mr. Gurung is very, very particularly speaking of. So I'll have some final words for you before I open the audience. You talked of sustainability and prosperity. We spoke about the gross happiness index. Prosperity and happiness and sustainability. How do you juggle them together? Prosperity, happiness, sustainability. Eventually, it's about people happiness, right? And you're so concerned about it. Thank you for reminding us on that, please.
Les, thank you so much, Chair. The gross national happiness index is something that we've been taught since our school days. We have these 4 pillars, talking about environment, culture, heritage. So, before I came here, I was in this very big conference, the first of its kind in Bhutan. And the question was put to me if I'm a social entrepreneur. And then obviously the answer was, we are entrepreneurs, of course socially conscious. But this is something that is very inbuilt within us at Bhutanese. I also talked about, before I ended my speech earlier, I talked about the aspiration was not just to, start a recycling company or a construction company, but it was something to do with coming up with indigenous service and product for the whole society. So this is something very inbuilt, and this is something that our forefathers taught us. You know about, probably know about, heard about Gelifo Mindfulness City that is coming about, a special economic zone that is getting established in the south of Bhutan. And this is a vision that His Majesty envisioned probably a decade ago, but something that he started sharing with the people of Bhutan about 3-4 years ago. And this is going to be something very big in this region. And the question I was also asking myself is that, do we really want organic growth or do you want a fast growth? The speakers yesterday talked about connecting Bhubaneswar and Cuttack. If you really want to expand the trade and then go really big to increase the GDP and so on. In Bhutan, it's a little different. We talk about whether the policies is really going to support, because at the end of the day, see, its policy must follow the private sector, and something that we personally have been really advocating about a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunity that has been open to us. Just to share you that recently the Reserve Bank of India has opened up borrowing to entrepreneurs in Bhutan, and that is something very amazing, because I'm really looking forward to that, because the interest rates in Bhutan are very high. Although it's a happiest country, but the interest rate goes up to 12%. Whereas I can borrow the same amount of money at about 4 to 5% from India. And there's something really, a big opportunity for us. And of course, I'll be boring, but again, having said that earlier, that I would really like to collaborate because it's not something that we can do alone. We've been too much dependent on India, which is, of course, in a good way. But having said that, there's a huge trade deficit. We export a lot of electricity to India, but again, we import probably 4 or 5 times of everything, starting from the cooking oil, the dress that I'm wearing, groceries, fuel, fossil fuel, etc. So on. So in my own small ways, what my company does is we try to reduce the import of bitumen by using waste plastic. So in our very own small ways, we play our part, we try to contribute as much as possible. So what I'm trying to say is the way of life. This is how we've been taught, we've been brought up, and for me, at the end of the day, it's all about serving to the community, to my king. I'm a very faithful servant of the Majesties, and whatever we do back in Bhutan is all because of them and all to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The cue for closing the session has already arrived. Well, literally 2 minutes. I'm sorry, I will have just one intervention from the audience. Though I can see, you can see from the hands that are raised how interesting this session has been. And when I was originally told an hour and 30 minutes, 90 minutes is what I have not digressed actually. So it's very interesting, but I'll have to restrict it to 2 interventions. I can see this hand up since long. You can just introduce yourself. But as you start and the mic reaches you, 30 seconds on Arthashastra. 30 seconds, literally.
Yes, let me just try to make this 30 seconds. The reason we named this institute Arthashastra was because the time when the original Arthashastra was written by Kautilya Chanakya, it was a period of great uncertainty. There were warring kingdoms, there were people routinely poisoning each other, the economy was in ruin, there was a foreign invader at the edge of India and so on. And out of that chaos came the Mauryan Empire and then Ashoka and so on and so on. So we felt that this was the world we were facing, there was a new kind of uncertainties, and to deal with it, what else but Arthashastra? We were criticized because some of my Indonesian friends said, yeah, but this looks too Indian, why don't you call it Srivijaya? Where at the time when we had great connections. So we decided we will call the institute in Bali the Arthashastra Institute, but we will also open a corresponding institution in India which will be called the Srivijaya organization or whatever. So,
thank you so much, sir. For all of the audience, we do know that it is in this land, on the shores of the beautiful river Daya, that the Chanda Shok becomes a Dharma Shok, and the world history actually changes in 326 BC from here. So, well, much on that. One intervention quickly. Yes, please. Dr. Senapati, I'll ask Mr. Gurung, not on microplastics, on sustainability about, he talked about community participation. Quick 1 minute, please, because I can see the organizers are a little tad worried about the time. Yes,
please. The areas of cooperation could be, of course, water basin management, data sharing, green entrepreneurship, ecotourism. These are the areas that actually we can work together on. Recently there was a news flash saying that, the flood that happened in West Bengal was caused by the rivers coming from Bhutan. Well, it's not that case, We do have our own issues of, watershed management. We have, glacier lakes, melting at a very high alarming rate because of the climate. Temperature rising every year. So we have our own set of problems, but there are, of course, a lot of opportunities that we can work on, just like I said earlier.
As much as I would like to get the session going, but I think I have got very strict reminders. So you'll have to pardon me, audience, and I'll request you to please give a resounding, kind of recognition for the wonderful speakers, the kind of excitement they have had in each one of us. I'm very sorry to each of the audience where your hands were raised. My apologies to that. Madam, over to you. And thank you once again, Dr. Satish, Gurungji, Ajay, my friend. Good to see you. And good to see everybody over here. Dr. Pradhan, sir, thank you so much for this opportunity. And to Energy Foundation, to Purvodaya, thank you everybody. A resounding clap, please.
Thank you so much. What an energetic session. Brilliant takeaways. I'm sure audience have jotted down the points. I'd be taking a moment and would be inviting Trustee the Energy Forum, Sri Siddharth Pradhan sir, on the dais to felicitate our wonderful, wonderful chair we had today in the session, President Business Development, Adani Ports SEZ, Shri Subrat Tripathi, sir. Everyone, come on, please give a thunderous round of applause. Shri Satish Chandra Mishra, founder and CEO, Arthasastra Institute, Indonesia. Sri Rikesh Gurung, founder and CEO, The Green Road. Sri Ajay Pradhan, Vice President, 3IKIT University, and CEO, President, C2S2, New Delhi. Sri Rikesh Gurung ji, sir, this side. Sri Ajay Pradhan. Impactful speaker, Sri Satish Chandra Mishra. And a group photograph. Thank you to our chair. Thank you, Pradhan sir. Thank you. We will move for the next session, which is all about frontier technologies in shaping Purvodaya vision. We'll just take 2 to 3 minutes, couple of minutes in order to set the stage. Before that, I must applaud that the first Young Thinkers Meet session was really impactful.
Thank you, Siddharth sir, for correcting me. I stand corrected. It was actually 261 BC. My corrections on that, I went across to, when I was thinking about it, I was looking at the Kalinga War. I was looking at the advent of, into the, when we crossed the Hydaspes, it was, coming in. So I mistook that. So thank you for correcting that. Certainly, 261 BC stands in Odisha history. Madam, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. An ocean of knowledge, our trustee, former Secretary to Government of India, Sri Siddharth Pradhan, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session, we would be starting in a while. I mean to say right now, we'll be starting because our session chair and our speakers are already there inside. So please don't go outside. We are starting the session. Before inviting our chair and our speakers for the session, I would be taking some time to introduce them. Ladies and gentlemen, the session will be chaired by Sri Satyajit Mohanty, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defence, Government of India, who is a senior administrator with extensive experience in defense policy, strategic planning, and technology-driven modernizations. He has played a key role in integrating frontier technologies into national security frameworks. His insights have greatly enriched today's session and on how emerging technologies can shape the Purvodaya vision and strengthen India's strategic future. I request Transformations, who is known for steering technology transitions and enterprise-level digital international markets. We welcome you, sir. Last but not the least, I would be humbly inviting on the dais Ms. Naimisha Pradhan.
He has done some work on nuclear energy. We have, literally the father of nuclear energy sitting here, Professor Kakotkar. So, to share some of when we were students, nuclear energy was taboo. And, no one used to talk about it. You have seen it from the US also. Now we are getting into the SMRs. We are, day before yesterday, we saw the Santi bill. This would be introduced now. The cabinet passed the Santi bill in opening up the nuclear energy to the private players. We have my good friend Venkat, who has been in the thick of things in China, has been in IIM Kozhikode, has been in now in IIM Indore, mentoring startups, interacting with a lot of graduates who are actually into the field. He will talk about the China challenge. Like with goods, like with, with services, we all now talk about the China threat in the deep tech, not just as a national security concern, but how China is marching ahead in the deep tech and how it will impact our own startup and the youngsters here. Can we compete with them? What are the lessons from the Chinese deep tech society? We have Srinivas, a evening scholar, and he has actually worked in the, like Venkat, both of them have spent many years in China. He has worked in the BRICS Bank, and he is now with the Indian School of Business. He is actually deep into the fintech. So in the morning, Srini, there were certain issues about finance, about leveraging the financial platforms. I think you will throw some light on it. We have Vikas, who is based out of London, and coincidentally, he was here. He has spent a lot of years in Australia, and now he, advises the FMCG companies on primarily two things, on sustainability and on transformation. So, a lot of youngsters here are there because would like to hear your stories and to see how, if you look at a lot of global risks report, we are talking about green technologies, we are talking about extreme weather events, we are talking about green finance, so on and so forth. So how that vision can be leveraged in this part of the country. So I'm mindful of the time. He has to leave for another event as well. So I'll call the youngest amongst us to, kind of take the floor and speak for a few minutes. I will just deviate, and if he has some questions, if you have, he will take it, and then he has to leave. So Nimisa, can I request you to, speak on for a few minutes on the nuclear energy and how you see it, how you saw it from the US, how does it look in India, and how can, India and this part of the country, whether we have the geographical and the soft power abilities to leverage nuclear power and, kind of contribution of the nuclear power towards Viksit Bharat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much to the panel, and thank you to TEF for inviting me for this talk. I would firstly, given the context that I can talk from a US angle, having stayed there, but I want to focus on the two themes here. Sorry, I'll just adjust this. Okay. India's journey to 2047 of Viksit Bharat will be shaped by systems we build now, we build today. Laws that will unlock laws which will unlock investments, grids that will power industries, and ecosystems that turn ideas into products. I'll mention two big ideas which, in my opinion, are converging today. One, Prime Minister Modi's cabinet has recently approved the new nuclear bill, like Sir mentioned, also known as the Shanti Bill. This is a reform signaling that India wants to accelerate its civil nuclear energy by widening participation and removing long-standing structural hurdles. Two, here we sit today at Purvodaya, which is just not a dialogue of ideas, but it's an attempt to prove that Eastern India is a proving ground for competitive growth, new industry, and new opportunities. These are not separate stories. These meet at one question. In an open market, can we build reliable, clean energy with a globally competitive industry? And will small innovators and startups actually benefit from this move? To answer this, we need to actually understand why and what is this nuclear reform actually saying. For decades, civil nuclear power has largely been a state-led domain, understandably cautious, very tightly governed, and built for safety and sovereignty. The new bill is a message that India is now trying to move from a closed system to a managed, scalable ecosystem with clearer roles, with accountability, and a great room for industry to participate in building, supplying, and supporting the sector. And this matters because nuclear is not just about reactors or SMRs. It's about manufacturing, construction, quality, long-term operations, and a supply chain that can perform at world standards every day without excuses. Here is like one line we must plainly emphasize, and this actually changes a lot of things. Nuclear energy provides firm, round-the-clock baseload power, the steady foundation for any and whichever modern industry actually can reliably run on. Now let's bring it home to Purvodaya today. When we speak from an Eastern perspective, the question isn't merely that can we actually attract projects. The question is, can the East become competitive and inclusive at the same time in an open market? When we, because markets don't really reward only potential, markets reward reliability, markets reward quality, markets reward speed, standards, and scale. If Purvodaya is to live up to the expectations we are setting today, it must become more than just a corridor to move goods. It must become a platform that produces capability, a region where talent, infrastructure, and entrepreneurship rise together. This is where startups actually enter the story, and honestly, with both the risk and the promise. Here is the obstacle. Nuclear is actually a high entry barrier industry. When strategic sectors open up, the first wave of private participation actually often favors large industries and large firms that can actually carry the risk and wait for years for their returns. If we are not careful with this particular opening up of the market, this becomes consolidation, and the small innovators are often locked out. But here is where we have hope. Startups don't actually have to build power plants to shape the future of power. They can build what makes every power plant or makes every plant, every individual industry cluster, and every corridor safe, fast, affordable, and reliable. This could actually translate in the means of tools such as advanced inspection and quality tools that may reduce failures, robotics and remote systems that improve safety and uptime, predictive maintenance and digital twins that can cut costs and downtime. This can just become a predictive technological help towards the industry. This is where Eastern India can actually lead with their talent, and by waiting at the end of the and they do not have to wait at the end of the value chain, but they can build the value chain by correcting the missing links in it. I would like to close this out here. Shanti means peace, but in policy, it could and it should mean confidence. Confidence that India and Eastern India can scale clean and firm power very responsibly. Confidence that East can compete in open markets, and confidence then small innovators are not just spectators, but actually the builders today. If we get this right, the nuclear pathway will just not be a tool to generate electricity. It will actually generate capability and capacity in the young people today. And Purvodaya is not just the rise of a region, but it is actually the rise of a new generation of India and East, and Purvodaya is just contributing to this growth. Thank you.
Much. That was really short and crisp. Because he has to leave, if there are any questions, then, yeah, I see. Please, Vijay, please. For Nimisha, yeah. Can someone just pass the mic around? Do we have a hand mic?
This is a knowledge ecosystem. Knowledge must be acknowledged, and knowledge must be managed, and knowledge must be monetized. Today, the institution like Department of Atomic Energy also coming out with such kind of technology for entrepreneurship. Since you brief on the entrepreneurship in strategic sector, it is a time when we are talking about technology, trust, and trade, that too in blue economy. How we can leverage such kind of entrepreneurial opportunity, and what are the ecosystem? Because ecosystem plays an important role in validation, testing, calibration, and also freedom to operate. Intellectual property, one of the biggest challenge, I think Professor Venkat can also enlighten on that. It is the biggest challenge for India, both bilateral and multilateral level. So
if you have something related to her topic.
In fact, what do you think, Namisha, how an entrepreneur can mitigate such kind of challenges? Whether ecosystem is there to mitigate such kind of challenges, and if there, how we can handle it? Thank you.
I just have to sum up the question. You know, if you are looking at a very niche area like a nuclear technology, do you think, or nuclear industries, SMR ecosystem, do you think we have the right ecosystem here? What are the challenges, and can we mitigate it?
Thank you for this question. We do not have a very great or a public not a public in the sense government, but public in the sense it's not open yet. The bill has just been cleared by the cabinet 2 days back. It's still to be presented and it's still to be passed as an act. And once it does, then come the regulations or the standards or the rules which we can set for this ecosystem to be built upon. So that's an answer for later, I suppose. But yes, once that ecosystem has been built, it's not just the government's responsibility. Like I said, we can today pick up a laptop and give it a good search, or even actually address and assess the gaps which come up in the market just with one research paper, just to understand what the nuclear ecosystem actually requires. We have examples from different countries and we can read up about that. And there are a lot of avenues which are going to open up once this bill passes. It just does not have to stand at the government sector side. They are opening up for a reason, and that reason is so that many players, and not just the big players or the large firms, participate so that young people can innovate. And this is actually going to be a great platform, actually a very good platform to start thinking about new different type of ways you can integrate with the sector. But yeah, that's a question for later, I think, once the parliament passes this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Nimisa. So I just have one question, because you just spend a lot of time in the US. How do you see, when we grew up, when we saw the 1, 2, 3 agreement and the nuclear debates which were happening early, now, and still we have not been able to, get over the civil liability for nuclear damage. So from Washington, D.C., how does it look like, whether countries like USA, Japan, etc., would be, acceptable to the Shanti concept? What is your take on that?
Yes. What my understanding of my reading has been, the US or Japan or these countries are where they are because the market is ready, and if the market's not ready, the people are sensitized to this topic. India still has its own hesitations towards nuclear civil energy, and for the very right reasons it does have. But I think it's a high time that we in India also start making ourselves aware and start reading up about what civil nuclear energy actually is, and is it really dangerous, is it not? This is, I think, a very basic but critical mindset difference I did find in the US and here. It's people are more acceptable to this idea. I don't know if it's because they were showed this idea very early on, because India also had discovered this long back. It's not something new to India. And actually one of the best and the biggest innovations have come from India. It's not very alien to us. But we still are hesitant. We are a large population. It just takes time to sensitize everyone towards this topic. But US companies are also very headstrong with this. The market had been very much open from the get-go. It wasn't like India where the market was with the government and then slowly opened up to the private sector. There are these structural differences, but then again, like I said, I think once the bill comes in place, we won't be very far behind them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would request Venkat, who is also spent some time here. He was a student in Keonjhar and is...
Sir, we have a small token of appreciation from the organizing committee for Ms. Namisha Pradhan.
Okay.
For her
Yeah.
impactful participation, I'd be requesting Trustee the Energy Forum, former Secretary to Government of India, Sri Siddharth Pradhan sir, to kindly come and join us on the dais and to honor our very, very impressive speaker we have today, Ms. Naimisha Pradhan. And of course, you can bring some energy, audience, with your set of round of applause. Thank you, Siddharth sir. Thank you, Ms. Namisha. Over to the chair to carry the session forward.
Thank you, Munmun. So, as I was saying, Venkat has spent some time in during his college days here in Odisha. He is very fluent in Mandarin, so he understands, a lot of what is happening in China inside out. He has spent about 5 years, 7.5 years in Beijing. So, he understands the ecosystem there. from where we see Chinese technology, we see it as having a very pernicious impact on our ecosystem. So, as a threat to a lot of our critical information infrastructure industries, etc. But they are really into the deep tech. If you look at the Australian strategy policy document, in about 44 of the 55, 60 odd technologies, they are actually the lead with a threefold advantage over even the US. India does fortunately figure in the top 5 in a lot of technologies. Do we have any positive lessons to learn is the first question. Can my young entrepreneur friends who are sitting here compete, or will it be a story of what we have faced in manufacturing and goods? And what are the precautions? What are the learnings? What are the positive takeaways? Maybe you can throw some light on how the Chinese society is transforming from a manufacturing base to a deep tech sector, how it will pan out in so far as frontier technologies are concerned. Thank you. Over to you, Venkat.
Good noon to all of you. It's more or less 12. Thanks a lot, organizers of this conference, for inviting me. As Satyajit has just mentioned, I have done my schooling from Standard 5 to my +2 in Orissa, in Barbil and Keonjhar, DD College. So, I'm quite familiar, and in a lighter vein, I say that my Oriya is better than my mother tongue Telugu, because I can read and write Oriya, but I can't do that with Telugu. But anyway, so Satyajit has posed a lot of questions, but I'll try to address some of them during my brief talk. So, see, when we seek to challenge, or we need to compete with an adversary, first of all, we need to understand the strengths of the adversary, and then only we can compete, isn't it? So therefore, my attempt during this presentation will be to give a kind of a bird's eye view, I would say, of what is the nature of the China challenge when it comes to innovation in high-end technology. So let me start with a small case. I'm sure all of you would have heard about one of the leading EV battery players, CATL. Its abbreviated form is Contemporary Amperex Techs Company Limited. It's one of the leaders of global EV supply chain today, along with BYD. And recently, this particular firm revealed 2 major technological breakthroughs. Number 1, it came up with the idea of having a novel cell architecture that eliminates the need for traditional graphite anodes. What benefits it has? Well, it has 2 benefits. 1, increased volumetric energy density by 60%, a leap that promises to extend vehicle range, that is EV vehicle range, decrease the costs of the battery, and shrink the physical footprint of the battery pack. Number 2, it effectively industrializes the sodium ion technology, a chemistry that CATL itself, a few years back was said that it is impossible to develop. And today CATL is saying that they have passed all the stress tests and they are ready to launch the commercial part of this technology. So what is the advantage of this particular technology? It retains charge of 90% even in extreme sub-zero temperatures going to -40. So it's a low-cost alternative to conventional lead-acid batteries which fail in sub-zero temperatures. So CATL has first mover advantage. Today, CATL and BYD, they control 60% to 70% of global battery supply chains. Now, what is the message? The message is Beijing has shifted from participation in global supply chains to domination in global supply chains. And it's not limited to, these kind of innovations are not limited to EV batteries alone, but other high-end technology. Artificial intelligence, biotechnology, quantum computing. What does all this mean? Well, the message is clear that China has transcended itself for its former identity of being a factory of the world to genuine innovation powerhouse. While it's true that the state has powered the initial velocity in high-end technology with massive R&D injections and subsidies, it's to merely a top-down fiat. So China is no longer adapting to Western technology, but it is actively seeking global pace for the 0 to 1 invention. In other words, China's innovation in high-tech and self-sustaining. So therefore, we as our country, we, that is India, we need to develop a more nuanced lens and develop informed understanding of China's innovation ecosystem. Well, 3 reasons. One, India's deep import dependence spanning such as solar modules, pharma, engineering state is engineering, quote unquote, a comparative advantage right from the scratch, catapulting champions like TCL to global dominance. Well, it wants to kill more than 2 birds with 1 stone. The idea is not to capture electronics market alone, but the idea is to basically come up with that kind of science and technology where some of the processes required for advanced display technology offer a direct tech bridge to semiconductor manufacturing processes as well. And third, it allows Beijing to flood the global south with affordable hardware. So this is, an example of the engineering state in a very precise way. Number 2, China being a Darwinian marketplace. So if we think that it is only all about state, then we are grossly mistaken. It's also about only the most agile and resourceful survive. So therefore, their evolution it's not something which is accidental, but it is very much structural. In fact, academicians and research and organizations, think tanks, have done a very deep study of China's innovation ecosystem when it comes to the private sector, and they call it, quote unquote, total innovation management, a holistic approach where firms simultaneously optimize innovations on multiple fronts. So you have many Western firms, specializing either in product innovation or in business innovation, or maybe in 2 or at max 3. But you have Chinese firms who, at the same time, are specializing in innovations on 6 parameters. It's product innovation, business innovation, process innovation, customer experience, technology, and organizational structure. This is what makes them special. So in an authoritarian system, these Chinese private firms constantly negotiate with the borders which demarcate the state and, for lack of a better term, civil society. So they have developed informal networks, high-trust networks, ability to prototype, manufacture at speeds that is difficult for Western firms and other foreign firms to even match. So the result, vertically integrated juggernaut capable of rapid iterations and massive scale. And now I come to the third one, that is the triple helix model. According to Australian Strategic Policy Institute, which Satyajit was just talking about, it indicates that Chinese researchers lead the world in high-impact citations across 52 out of 64 critical technologies. Xi Jinping's leadership has, for the last 10 years, has always made it clear that for them, the most important thing to invest is on human resources. So the Chinese state is spending tremendous amount of money on high-end training and education, especially in domains of technology. So China's universities actively incubate national champions. For example, if you look at AI, Tsinghua University is the hub where all the AI activities come from. In fact, it is from Tsinghua University that China's leading player.
Last 1 minute or 2, so?
Yeah. So China's leading player, Chirpu AI and Moonshot AI, basically owe their origin in many ways to Tsinghua University. The National Development Reforms Commission has come up with a 3-pronged doctrine. NDRC is their national planning body. So they have given a mandate to the commercial firms to integrate university research into advanced manufacturing. They also have given, they also plan to create a regional deep tech hub. And third, they are specifically targeting, those kinds of tech domains where the future industries lie. So I would, conclude with what kind of implications it has for India. Mainly three implications. So as India seeks to seize the mantle of global manufacturing, China is already moving goalposts, and it is intensifying attempts to widen the tech gulf. Second, China's domination of advanced industries such as green tech and EVs directly collides with India's Atmanirbhar ambition. Number two, as the world is witnessing, weaponized interdependence and disruption of tech supply chains from both Chinese side and US side, India needs to have a tight diplomatic walk where it can't insulate from this great power contest. And so, therefore, it needs to take extreme care to protect itself from this deepening of tech bifurcation. And third, the military, civil fusion. Beijing's efforts to repurpose commercial technology to military domains means China is civilizing its defense ecosystem, where a commercial startup in Shenzhen may be developing next generation of tactical surveillance, which is of immense, which has an immense impact on, our borders, security and all that. So due to paucity of time, I have to conclude, but I'll be happy to answer. Indigo has made life easier for me. It has delayed my flight by 45 minutes. So we have enough time for Q&A. And I would like to take the question and answer session, certain questions of yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venkat. I had to cut you short so that you can take a few questions. Some of the lessons which, questions at the end of the session, please. Some of the lessons which you did say is, translational research, moving into higher technological readiness levels, moving research from the academia to, actually to commercial grade TRL 6 and above. So we have a deep skilling and system here. We have the IIT here, we have the NISER here, we have the material technology which actually can work on critical and emerging technologies and advanced materials and rare earths, etc., processing technologies on which China dominates. So there's some of the takeaways. We will discuss it at the end of the session. Now I'll again call another sinologist, my friend Srini, who has spent equal amount of years, if not more, in the BRICS Bank in Beijing, looking at fintech and the financial architectures. He is also a cybersecurity expert, so he knows the challenges which come in, kind of diffusing and democratizing finance and access to it. He is with the Indian School of Business and runs his own consultancy as well, so he knows the challenges which youngsters face. Combining all of that, Srini, you have been in Andhra, so which is, part of our Purvodaya vision, one of the major anchors also, along with places like Vizag, Bhubaneswar and all. So maybe you can share your experiences in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Satyajit sir, for having me here. It's very fantastic to be a part of this event, and this is my first time in Bhubaneswar, so I'm really happy that I could finally get a chance to visit this wonderful place. And my association with Bhubaneswar and the elite from the Orissa started from my interactions with Reserve Bank of India. So there is a senior cadre within the Reserve Bank of India who have actually come from Bhubaneswar and also from Orissa, including our ex-governor of RBI and also the senior executive directors and also the chief general managers and the entire cadre of RBI with whom I have interacted from Orissa have been a tremendous force of influence in my own career. And recollecting those experiences and also seeing whatever is getting discussed since morning here, I am reminded of one beautiful sloka I learnt in Bhagavad Gita. Edi acharati sreshtaha, edet tevetaro itarajanaha, sayat pramanam kurute, lokas tadanuvartate. So whatever the best people do and whatever the best people set as a kind of a standard, the rest of the people definitely will follow. And I would like to compliment the team of Purvodaya and the leadership of Mr. Mohanty sir and other dignitaries here. I'm sure that this entire standard that is getting set in terms of the knowledge accumulation, knowledge dissemination, is going to set a new standard for the aspiring entrepreneurs and also the people who are interested in accumulating the knowledge, a new set of standard. Having said that, the few remarks that I would like to make come from my own experience. Mostly the technology that I would be talking is about fintech, financial technology. And my experience, almost like 15 years as a banker, 5 years as a MDB compliance person, and 3 years in the last 3 years with Paytm as a fintech expert, and last few months in my own domain consulting and also with respect to my association with academic institutions. Now, all these things put together, I think one important change that is getting witnessed is our look towards the east as far as the fintech is concerned, and that is motivated by two important dimensions. I put it as the political dimension and also the geopolitical dimension. From the political dimension or the policy dimension, if you see, so far we have been fascinated with whatever is happening in the West with respect to whatever the technology comes from the West. We used to adopt those technologies. But of late, almost like since last decade, what we are seeing is that the West is no longer interested in, as a government, it is not interested in doing any kind of an innovation of its own. It is leaving every kind of an innovation to the private entities. If you see whatever the policies of United States are now, there is no longer an innovation that is done by the government per se, but it is trying to encourage the private entities to take up new innovation. And the kind of innovations that are happening in the private space are now somewhat challenging the traditional way we used to look at money, the traditional way we used to look at finance. For example, the cryptocurrencies, the stable coins that we are trying to see, the kind of payment mechanisms that are getting developed in the United States are completely resetting the whole financial architecture that we have seen. And that is creating a kind of a complete divide between the way the world is trying to develop an innovation and the US is trying to develop the financial innovation. And this is very important for us because our alignment should be now towards the East and also the nations towards our eastern side, because most of the countries on the eastern side, we are not letting this entire innovation to happen completely in the private space, but facilitated by the digital public infrastructure, which the government is trying to promote. And I think this is very important because the kind of population that we have, the financial literacy that we have, and also the maturity of the financial systems that we have necessitate an active role of the government, an active role of the regulator to facilitate the innovation. And that is seen in terms of the fast payment systems. We are no longer dependent on, or rather, we are not dependent upon a cryptocurrency. We are not dependent upon a stable coin to make our remittances easy and cheap. We have got what we call as the UPI, for example, are the fast payment systems which are actually turbocharging our economy. So this experience is completely different from the experience that is gradually getting developed in the Western states like United States. And what it means for global financial architecture. So we have to integrate this kind of a turbocharging UPI equivalent innovations in the Eastern nations. For example, Singapore has Pay Now, Thailand has Prompt Pay, and Malaysia has Do It Now. So each of these rails, as we call as the payment rails, need to get integrated with our Indian payment rails, and that is the time we'll be in a position to really make a new cross-border payment architecture. And for that, it is imperative that we not only study the US economy for some time, but we also need to study how the payment systems are developing in each of our ASEAN nations and also the BIMSTEC nations. And this is what some of the initiatives from our side with respect to our eastern neighbors, the way the PhonePe, for example, is partnering with the local players in Nepal, for example, the way eastern nations are creating a new network called as Project Nexus, which is going to be a kind of a collective network for the fast payment systems so that everybody can plug and play to that network. Each of these are very important milestones, and anyone who is wanting to understand the developments in the payment space need to learn about these things. So the point number one is about the opportunity that we have when we turn towards the east. After the opportunity, we have certain possibilities in the way we can start encouraging our own firms on top of the infrastructure that is created to innovate. And for that purpose, we can also see the institutions that we have created. And one institution I can think of is the New Development Bank, to which India is a member, And also we have got two of our neighbors like Bangladesh, and also Indonesia has also come recently as a member to the New Development Bank. The way International Financial Corporation, IFC, has partnered with Monetary Authority of Singapore and created a regional regulatory sandbox. A sandbox is a place where firms can make a kind of an innovation experimentation. A similar kind of an experimentation is required to be done not just within the country, but also across the region. So this is the second point I want to highlight. While we have an opportunity to study the East Asian or study the eastern side of our country neighbors, but there is also an important possibility to enhance the innovation where through policy interventions and through support of the multilateral framework, we can create regional regulatory sandboxes. Because when Mr. Bhante sir was actually requesting in terms of what we need to really think from the entrepreneurial perspective, we need these sandboxes actually. And these sandboxes are the places where regulators will have the opportunity to test the innovation, and that can be done with the governments, with the regulators, and with the frameworks that can be created by multilateral entities. So we have an opportunity, we have a possibility, and the Eastern vision is also an important necessity for us. Because while we are showcasing a lot of innovation with respect to UPI, lot of innovation with respect to our fintech, of late you are seeing a lot of financial crimes, cyber crimes, digital crimes that are happening, the kind of digital arrests that we are seeing, the way the money mules are trying to cheat the system, the kind of frauds that are happening in the cyberspace, all these are originating from the gangs that operate from the eastern neighborhood. So be it with the borders of Thailand, be it with the borders of Cambodia, we have seen the pig butchering scams, for example, are the kind of the romance scams, are the job scams that are perpetrated from this hotbed of the cybercrime region is an important element for us to watch out for, because the benefits that we have accumulated out of our fintech innovation might get washed away if these scams or if these crimes are allowed to perpetrate without any action. So it is important for us to engage with these nations and also make sure that we have international either information exchange treaties or our understanding of how these criminals operate, and the way we need to make sure our law enforcement agencies have got access to some of the measures that they are taking, and their law enforcement agencies have got access to some of the ways in which the crimes are getting perpetrated. So it is also a necessity for us. I think this is broadly I wanted to share that looking towards East is not just a political or a kind of a geopolitical necessity. It is very important aspect that is going to define our fintech trajectory. That's point number one, because the way the Western nations are trying to develop is completely a different way than the Eastern nations are trying to do. There is a great divide in the financial architecture going to happen. And when we look in towards the East, we have an opportunity, the opportunity to learn from the fast payment systems, the opportunity to integrate our own fast payment systems with these nations. We have an opportunity. And there is a possibility whereby our young entrepreneurs can actually operate in these countries, for which purpose we need to have regulatory sandbox models blessed by the governments, policymakers, regulators, and the MDP frameworks. So that is the possibility. And it is also a necessity, because without understanding how these crimes are getting perpetrated, we may be at the risk of losing out the benefits we have accumulated on the digital economy charged by the fintech innovation. I think these are the three dimensions, and I request each one of you who are keen to study East need to get a hang of these topics, and I would be very happy to personally engage, because there is so much amount to really understand and also assimilate the way these modalities work, because it is not just like a kind of a mainstream media bite that we know some of these UPI innovation, but deep down into that innovation, there is a whole lot of exercise that we need to really understand first and then get on to innovate and also secure what we have innovated. So happy to engage with this forum, and also to any person who is interested in getting this understanding much better. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Srini. That was a great message on not just integrating our supply chains, but probably, looking at certain innovation corridors, linking we talk about maritime corridors, we talk about goods, flow of goods through FTAs. You have brought about a new dimension which talks about frontier technology. Actually, frontier technology in this region would reach about 10 trillion by 2030. So if we, our startups, our youngsters can leverage those, IoTs, quantum, AI, etc., from this part of the region and connect to the Act East, so it would probably be a great, journey forward in terms of increasing the capital and increasing the economy of this Purvodaya region. Now we have heard two of our China experts speaking on various facets of how the China model is operating, what we can learn from them. Towards the end, we always, closer to lunch and towards the end, let's hear some personal stories from because you have been a entrepreneur yourself, moving from the engineering to an auditor, an advisory role on sustainability, on transformation. He actually is on the board of advisors in London on advising a lot of FMCGs like Unilever, like Mars, and also he now is into his independence consultancy. And he would, kind of share more of his personal life experience, his journey, and takeaways, because we have a lot of young startups here who would like to. We heard two of our youngsters, your friends, speaking in the morning, mentoring them. Probably, you can also share your experiences. But the key message, because I would request you, is to give some takeaways, some messages from which our youngsters, young friends can learn from your experience over the years and your journey in Australia and London. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Right. So until yesterday evening, I didn't know that I have to speak here, so I'm less prepared. This morning when I woke up, I wrote few things. My wife, I made her listen to this. I'm going to read out that. So excuse me if I'm not very prepared. I can see that a lot of you have already been hungry, wants to go and enjoy your lunch. So I want to make it light as well, so that you can enjoy and stay awake, and after that you can enjoy your lunch. This session is about the frontier technology. It's about the future. But before we go into the future, I want to take us back to history. I want to take us to Ramayana. The legends of Ramayana is about 10,000 years ago. And 25 to 30 years generally is considered as a generation. So that means 400 generations have passed since Ramayana was set 10,000 years ago. Yet, Ramayana is always given to us through storytelling, never through the screens, never through the textbooks, although it has been to some extent, but mostly through storytelling. Our parents and grandparents have told us Ramayana. In those tender years, we have found some interesting characters, which we call it as heroes, that help us remember those mythological stories. In my childhood, when I was growing up in Cuttack, we had, me and friends of mine in my vicinity, interesting, because he was able to leap mountain and save Lakshman's life. He is able to set fire on his tail and burn the Lanka, Ravan's Lanka, the golden Lanka, and then he's able to carry Ram, Lakshman and Sita, and brought back to Ayodhya from Lanka after the Ramayana was fought and Ram got the victory. Do you have any interesting characters from Ramayana or heroes that you remember? Anything interesting which you can resemble with technology, frontier technology? Anyone can remember anything? Yes? Sorry? That's exactly right. So that's what I want to talk about. So that's the celestial chariot of Ravan. God knows with what kind of a fuel that he flew. It could be imaginary, but it kind of tells a story that at that age, 10,000 years ago, people had the vision to think about something like which we call it as technology today. And Puspak Viman, since the Puspak Viman till today, I think 10,000 years have been passed. I think dynasties and empires have been built, has felt, and now we have got a political system, which is again a question still. Long before, I think, our current technological advancements, such as the satellites or the radios, TVs, mobiles, Puspak Vimal showed us one thing, that human beings are always wanted to rise, to higher and going to future, to further. That dream continued, I think, across the border, across the geopolitical boundaries, technologies connected us together. We built engines, we built gliders, aircraft. Finally, we have something similar to Puspak Viman, which we call it as drones, right? So drones is not drones is not something which I have picked up because I have got experience in drones. It's just a metamorphical topic which can be connected to any sort of innovation that we can connect it today, right? Small at first, simple at first, but it applied to many areas, good and bad. I think good in the sense that it could carry the medicines, it could help with the agriculture and help with the emergency services somewhere, and bad in the sense that what you have seen in the recent war with Pakistan, where it was used to fight against India as well, and also for other also good causes. The message that I wanted to pass on here is that when literally with drones or Puspak Viman, but in terms of our advancement with the technologies, our responsibilities grows as well. Famous dialogue from Spider-Man movie, that when we fly higher, the responsibility also grows, rises too. We must ask ourselves. I was told this morning that this is a podium of young entrepreneurs who are into different kind of technologies and building the vision for Purvodaya, which is the pet project of the Prime Minister. Is that what I wanted to set a tone is that we must ask ourselves today that what kind of sky that we are building for our future. Not literally the sky because of the drones, but metamorphically with the technologies, with the innovations in general. A sky that is filled with the glutters and danger, or a sky which coexists with the nature, where technology and the nature live together. When I think about the drone and its prospect, I always think myself that who is going to control the air traffic of the drones? How many companies are going to use the drones to send out the groceries and to send the medicines? And will there be any governance around the drones? And that's exactly what I wanted to, the innovations to think about. I don't have much of a technological knowledge or experience, but I have got a good oversight of living abroad for about 20, 21 years, which I can share. The role of the young entrepreneurs is not just to innovate, but to innovate responsibly and to purposefully and thoughtfully. And that's exactly what I'm going to pass on, a purposefully driven innovation, not just to be commercially successful, but where it finds its purpose serving the nation, serving the mass generation, that's all. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bikash Mahanti. As I was introduced, I'm a chartered accountant, MBA in finance, Bachelor of Engineer by education. I haven't followed a particular career path. I have driven by whatever that accidentally that life has taken me so far. I do a lot of things together. I'm a life coach, business coach, I enjoy doing the auditor sort of a role in the sustainability space because I do connect with that topic so much. I do also at times financial audit, IT audit as well, but I think that the one which I enjoy most is auditing the sustainability traceabilities of FMCG organizations, which I do today. I do it with as much as contentment as I could. Before I conclude, we go back for a few minutes to the very topic that we are here, that is the cutting-edge technologies or frontier technologies, and how they can shape the Purvodaya vision. To frame this, I want to share two quotes I recently came across in the public platform from two eminent personalities in India. One is Arnab Goswami, which you know of, a prominent media personality. And the second one is Sabir Bhatia, which we might recall is founder of Hotmail, who introduced email platform to us. Though they came from a very different background, both made some points. I think I need to wear my glasses. Both made a point that is deeply relevant to all of us here today about ambition, technology, and India's most movement towards attaining excellence, which I heard that a lot of comparisons have been made with China, with competing nations, but India has its own excellence, always have been, since the ages. Upon returning from his recent trip from London, Arnab Goswami made a statement saying that it felt as if I'm coming from a developing nation to a developed nation. On a different context, not to counter that, Sabir Bhatia said, India's growth must be measured by its actual quality of life of its civilians, not just the headline GDP figures. Quality of life referred to as clean air, sufficient drinking water, ability of our citizens to deal with the rising inflation, life standard that is broadly equal. That's what I have experienced in the last 20 years in the Western countries. If that's what is happening, then we call that India has kind of achieved a developed nation status. I personally relate most with what Sabir Bhatia has said, because India's progress should be measured by how much it improves the lives of the everyday Indians or Aam Janta. This is how I see the scope of innovation in India. Whether in Eastern India, under this Purvodaya vision, or across the country, my suggested area of innovation should be food, agriculture, air, and water. These are the basic needs of life, and this is where the innovation can make the biggest difference to India. It will take us from the current position that we are in India to India which is truly excellent and par excellent from any other country. With the support of Government of India, financial institutions, and platforms like Purvodaya, we can build simple, practical, technical innovation that help people build businesses and make the nation stronger. You'll ask me why and how. I'll take 2 more minutes and the 2 more examples that I will give you. In a recent TEDx talk, I saw a young Indian, I think he's studying in MIT, has mentioned that he has built a device which can be set on any of the vehicles on the road, whether it's a 2-wheeler or 4-wheeler, and it is going to suck the carbon dioxide from the environment. And later on, that collected carbon dioxide can be converted to ink, to dye, or to colors, basically, from a waste to a purposeful business, and that way I think you also take out the carbon dioxide from the environment as well. Another example, recently I went to my friend, film star Akash Das Naik's anniversary event. I met Akash as one of the childhood friends who is a regional manager in a mobile device company. He has shared some of the statistics with me, which is quite intriguing and interesting that you will find as young entrepreneurs. He said 70% of India's mobile phone market is controlled by China and Korea. 55% by China, 15% by Korea. Also, smartphone.
Can I just ask you your last 1 minute?
Yeah, last 1 minute.
Thank you.
Just about to. So smartphones, not the normal phones, smartphone sales in India is about 3.5 lakhs crores per month. And the same with Odisha is 70 crores per month. When you look at these numbers, we ask ourselves, is this not an opportunity? Opportunity to build, manufacture, innovate here in India in the national interest, creating values, job, and self-reliance. It has been a pleasure here to talk here. This is my first time in a podium like this, but thank you very much for giving an opportunity to talk here. And I'm here for the same purpose as all of you here, to experience, to learn, and to share what I have learned living outside. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. We still have about 20 minutes, so I'll just take a minute, to be slightly poetic. Robert Frost had said, two roads diverged in the woods. I took the one less traveled, and it made the difference. Believe me, this is if one mantra which I have to give you from this platform, after having spent 25 years in the government, across ministries, and you said that would probably be about 4 or 5 generations now. Please take risks. It's better to take risks, better to be disruptors and innovators and, stumble a bit and then, kind of reach a certain place rather than being risk averse and towards the end of your life regretting it. So from my personal point of view, if I have to give some, tip from to 20-25 years is this. Second, we did, in the morning, we did a lot of you mentioned about the role of government and looking at government. If you look at the Sony story, there was a cap of $25,000 which the Japanese government after the war had put. That much you can only take as forex. Sony actually, was in deviation of a lot of this. They actually picked up a lot of capital and then threw it back to the Japanese government as fait accompli. So my second thing is, while there are a lot of things which the government is doing, and believe me, we see the kind of transformation that bureaucrats are now being asked to be in a seller's position, to market the strategies, to be at the top of the curve and help the industry. So there are a lot of deep tech, frontier tech missions, the National Quantum Mission, the AI mission, the semiconductor missions, which are really being aggressively pushed. And there are a lot of funding support also. Siddhartha did mention about some of them, the startup fund, the SIDBI fund. In Ministry of Defense, we run the IDEX program, Innovation Defense Exchange, the BIRAC for the biotechnology. So there are a lot of funds, but if you have to be real disruptors, you have to be real value creators, please also look beyond the government and government subsidies. While government is there to back, government is there to charter a course and path, please be the real disruptors. The tomorrow of frontier technology is yours. We have the demographic dividend, we have the talent, we have the skill sets, so please leverage that. With this, we are left with about 13 minutes, so which is good to take a couple of questions. May I now request, I see some hands going up. Can I just have request one of the organizers with a cordless mic to go to the friend there? To my 1 o'clock, right straight there. Yeah. You have one more question? Yes, sir. Quickly, yeah, quickly.
The second question is, sir has pointed out that 70% of the mobile products are controlled by Chinese and Koreans. What wrong with our Indian companies? Whether and what are the problems and challenges we are facing here, and how it can be addressed to it? Whether it's a problem with the government, or with the people, or with the technology, or anything else. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, the gentleman here, right? Yeah, thank you.
Sir, I have a question regarding fintech. The thing is that since India is the global hub of fintech, how are you going to integrate with different countries so that you can get a good leverage for India, and how can we help reducing the cyber crime and digital arrest?
Thank you. Any other questions in the first round? Yeah, I see the gentleman there, please. To my 11. Can someone there, right there?
Thank you, Chair. Both the sessions have been absolutely fascinating. My question is to Professor Venkat. I'm Sanjay Chaturvedi from South Asian University. We have been focusing on corridors, and now we talk specifically about China. Now, do we see the digital geographies replacing the physical geographies, or we see a very intricate entanglement between the two? For example, we know that whosoever controls cable landing stations will control the gateways to digital economy. So if that is the case, then are we going to see more geopolitics, terrestrial geopolitics, along with these? So if you're talking about frontier technologies, I think we also have the opening up of new strategic frontier spaces. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, the hand up there. There are a couple of hands up there. We'll take all of their questions together and then have a round with the experts. Yeah, quick. Can we just be very quick, please?
The second is, now BRICS is talking about a new currency. So, let us ignore the fact that Americans are going to oppose it. What are the steps? It's not that tomorrow they just walk in and introduce this new currency. So, what are the steps? What would normally be a time frame to introduce the BRICS currency?
Yeah, thank you. The one last question, please. Yeah, quick, just within 15 seconds, your question, please.
Purvodaya Perspectives, is there any funding for startups, new ideas? Because which has a lot of scope for ocean power, even we are working with also for ocean power dual technology. So for new ideas, if something grants can be given to new ideas, there are so many startups, so many industries can rise from Purvodaya.
Yeah. Yeah, one hand at the back. So the last two questions, I'm just putting the guillotine. The last two questions, and then we go to the speakers.
Thank you so much, Venkat sir, for highlighting the Chinese, how
The gentleman here, yeah, please, your last question before we hand it over to the experts.
Thank you. Namaskar. My name is Smritiranjan Sanapati. I am founder of CS Nova Intelligent Solution and Care and also a research scholar for IIT Bhubaneswar. So I have developed a jacket, a temperature condition jacket, which can give you cool, coldness, heating, also dehumidification. So it can help other people like worker, traffic police and army. Mostly I want to sell to government only. So sir, my question to you is how to approach government to take this? And next question, how to do the globalization? Like in Dubai or any cold, hot country, I can sell it more. So, and third thing sir, as you said that I have to purchase some of my component from China. But our government sometimes bans like Alibaba, AliExpress. AliExpress is now banned. So how, because the fan I am using that is not available in India right now. I have searched too much, but the fan is not available in India. So how, if India bans Chinese side, then what should I do? Like entrepreneur.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, if I have to sum up the questions, there's a question on digital arrest and cyber issues, which I think, Srini, you are the best person to address. On technology diffusion, mobile lessons, I would leave it to Vikas to address. Lot of questions to Professor Venkat, especially on the digital pathways, and we talk about the digital Silk Road of China and how the undersea cables etc. would disrupt the data-centric world. Whether we can actually do reverse engineering, which China did now, whether my friends can actually do, I will not call it stealing, but reverse engineering, and to what extent are the policy, global policy hit or aid it. And finally, they did talk about the Chinese digital, the EU1 system and the central bank digital currency, which China is now proposing as the Make in China strategy also. So these are the broad questions. I would start from my left to Professor Venkat in a minute or so, if you can reply. Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm not very sure whether I'll be able to give a structured answer to all these questions, but let me give it a try. Are physical geographies getting replaced by digital geographies? Yes, we can make an argument for that. We are already talking about how the world has got into two different kinds of digital estates of sorts. That is one, and tech, people are talking about tech bifurcation. But then just to give one example, let me talk about how China has come up with its Peito system, which is a rival GPS system. And this rival GPS system is increasingly getting used and integrated with many of the electronic items which China is manufacturing. And given the growing importance of electric vehicles, so you will have all these, Chinese GPS getting integrated, and as it exports more of this into different corners of the world in non-Western markets, China is going to have a bigger say. And in that case, you have digital geographies. And some time back, one of the concerns with this BRI, for example, was that, just to give a hypothetical example, so if a Kenyan end user in a B2B situation is buying something from a Chinese supplier, then that Kenyan end user can pay through Alipay or through VPay, and then the data goes to China, where the servers are there. So therefore, what it means is that we are in a situation where if a Chinese producer and a Kenyan manufacturer, they both are competing for the Kenyan end user, the local Kenyan guy will be having far less information about the customer data than the guy who is based in China. So that is what, that's the kind of world we are in. See, as far as IP is concerned, you know, yeah, you can say that, you know, China is all about stealing and all. But frankly speaking, let's take the case of United States. You know, don't tell me that United States has come to know about Chinese IPR violations only some 2, 3, or 5, 6 years back. They were knowing all along, but they played ball with them. The point is, the moment China graduated from that to another space, that is when they started feeling threatened. So it is very, very immature on our side to brush aside everything that is happening in China to IPR violation. I mean, there is no point in being in that kind of a, ignorance, I would say. And as far as imitation is concerned, you know, Japan has done it, South Korea has done it. That is the way, you know, many of these economies have come forward. So from imitation to innovation. And why India cannot do it? But I think India is also going to do it. But for that, we need to first of all become a manufacturing powerhouse, whereby it is very easy for, you know, many of the private players to indulge in prototyping, whereby, you know, they will be able to crisscross relatively seamlessly by undertaking various experiments from one industry to another. So in China, because of that robustness in their manufacturing ecosystem, the firms are find it very convenient to crisscross across different industrial domains and learn from each other and transfer their learning outcomes and come up with something new as far as innovation is concerned. So it's the economies of scale working in a very, very different way. Is Indian investment safe? Of course it is safe, but more importantly, can we face the heat there? That is what, the margins are so thin. And we also have this problem of where brand India is not as much, doesn't have that many takers as other Western established brands are. And now with many of the local brands themselves, outcompeting the well-known brands, to what extent we can face the heat in that system, that is a question that, we need to ask ourselves. But as far as safety is concerned, there is no issue. So for example, there is this Bangalore-based Ace Micromatic company, which is the leading machine tool manufacturing company in our country. It has gone to China in 2007, but they have survived and they are doing well. They are not doing outstandingly well, but despite all the challenges, they are not losing anything. They are making profits.
Thank you, Venkat. Your quick take on the subject, Srini, digital arrest, cyber security.
Yeah, I think I have. Am I audible? So there are like 3 questions I have taken, so I'll quickly answer them. One is about whether there is a digital government that is happening actually. I think this is one of the common misnomers about China, that everything is like tech-driven and tech-driven authoritarian government is basically the way it is running the country. But what we also need to understand is that beyond the tech-driven thing that comes as a kind of a friend, there is a massive army of the people actually who drives that economy. Like if you talk about the Great Firewall of the China, for example, there is a huge amount of people who sort out filtering because the rules are done by the tech. But the resolution of this has to be done by the individual army of the people actually. So it is very important to understand how these individual human elements also play a role, including surveillance, for example. It has got a complete community system. So each of the party cadres who are like present into the grassroots level, the persons who sit next to you, the persons who sit in your office, for example, as a party representative, are the people who are like within the embedded neighborhoods actually. They are actually the eyes and ears in terms of getting the mandate carried out. And this is very important because this is the kind of talent that is required for some of these technologies to get developed. While people think that AI is something like completely technology, it requires an army of the people to do data annotation, data labeling, content moderation. All these people is nothing. AI is actually nothing without having this kind of a skilled manpower to really get into. So one point I would like to say is that as much as government is technology driven, it requires a battery of the people to really run this actually. And that's where China actually scores better. In fact, there is a book called as Highest Exam, which is basically talking about China's Gaokao, which is basically the examination system that encourages rote learning and the kind of skill sets that they have developed in terms of the STEM graduates, which we unfortunately are losing that edge actually recently, I think is something for us to really think upon in terms of learning our skills. That's one point. Second is in terms of the BRICS currency, somebody has asked in terms of whether BRICS has made an announcement. I would like to correct, there is no announcement of BRICS currency per se. What is actually happening is that there are two models of currencies which have come so far. One is the European Union, which has come with a currency, euro. ASEAN, which tried with an ASEAN monetary unit, but never took off actually. But now ASEAN model is basically settling in the local currency between these individual entities. So the BRICS actually is trying to do a local currency settlement without getting into a kind of a common currency unit. Every now and then there is a mainstream media publication that happens that there is a BRICS currency, but that is not the idea with which BRICS countries are proposing. What they're trying to do is to, how do you invoice in the local currency? How do you make payment in the local currency? How do you do settlement in the local currency? And that's how you try to overcome maybe the bridges that we have for the dollar clearing through SWIFT. So that's a clarification.
Yeah, so
Last one is digital
last
arrest.
30
Digital
seconds.
arrest is basically, I think any kind of a cyber crime comes out of the fraud triangle as we call it, fear, greed and ignorance actually. So anybody who induces fear, anybody who induces you greed in terms of a job market or a romance scam for example, and anybody who induces you ignorance. I think digital arrest falls squarely on the ignorance. And there is a lot of work that we need to do as a community to encourage our neighborhood people not to fall prey, which the government is also trying to do, fintech entities are trying to do. But that's something which we need to tackle at community level in terms of educating our senior people to make sure that this is the process and it is basically a societal culture. For us, police is not a kind of a person whom we tap for help. We generally desist reaching out to the police. I think that fear is, as a society which we have, is getting tapped by the criminals because somebody is a police calling, we generally get terrified. We never see someone as a helping hand actually. So culturally we need to get attuned to seeking these people as some of the support providers. Thank you.
Quick take because...
And, mobile?
Yeah, on the
70%
mobile and the
market.
last minute.
I'm not expert in the mobile market or technology, but I can only guess based on what a corporate would do if something similar that happens. So imagine that if you have got a mobile phone, you have got thousands of components in it which makes up a mobile phone. So you have to break it down. It's a slow process, but if any of the components can be built here in India, and then slowly that he will capture that market. The other option, there are multiple options that possible. If not, if you don't want to buy from China, you'd probably like to buy from countries which are that you feel it's ethical to buy from, such as Japan or Korea more than buying from China. And then, slowly that when you start to make the component, maybe sell it to the countries which have the capabilities to make up the mobile, maybe to supply to Japan, supply to US, supply to Russia, and then slowly you will assemble them all here and make up a mobile phone and tackle your market. The biggest strength that we have got in India, that we have got much more population. I think we have got bigger population than China. Consumers, they are all essentially consumers. 1/5 of the world's populations that live in India, and we can do anything. So it's just a mindset that we need to carry forward to be self-sufficient on our own. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, thank you because...
There was another topic about digital boundaries, or have we covered that?
Sorry?
Digital boundaries or digital governance, have we covered that one?
Yes, covered, and because we are running short of time, we can carry on with the discussion during lunchtime. Just to, clarify one, about your jacket question thing. So in the morning, the trustee of the Energy Forum here has announced that you can reach out to Sri Dalbera, who is the CEO of the Energy Forum, and they would help you to all possible extent to put you in touch with the relevant government agencies. So please feel free to reach out to the Energy Forum, which is Delhi based, and they can kind of help you to connect with the various people who matter in the various ecosystem in the government to help you to kind of take your ideas forward or to give you certain ideas and mentorship about finance, about funding, about connects, about imports, exports, manufacturing, etc. Thank you very much. We just probably overshot time by about 2 minutes, which is okay. And I thank the lovely audience on the Sunday afternoon for having listened to the very stimulating discussions which our interesting panel had. My special thanks to Professor Kakodkar, Dr. Kakodkar, Siddharth sir, Ashok sir, Manish, all of you have been here to encourage us through the journey. And with that, we conclude this session, and thank you, the Energy Forum, for having brought all of us together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satyajit Mohanty sir, being the chair of the session. Thank you all our speakers for highlighting the immense potential of frontier technologies in shaping the future of Purvodaya. This concludes the final knowledge session of the conference, and I would be seeking the gracious presence of Trustee the Energy Forum, Shri Siddharth Pradhan sir, to present the token of appreciation to our chair and befitting speakers of the last session. Please give a round of applause. Let's welcome Shri Siddharth Pradhan sir on the dais to felicitate all our esteemed speakers of the last session. Meanwhile, we wanted to thank audience for being so graceful and cooperating throughout from yesterday. Our chair of the session, Shri Satyajit Mohanty sir, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defence. Shri Srinivas Yanamandra, IDRBT, Hyderabad, receiving this token of appreciation for his valuable participation. A round of applause for Shri G. Venkatraman, IIM Indore. Come on, I can see youth present over here, but they are silent, not encouraging. Sri Vikash Mohanty, Global Program Leader, Strategy and Transformation Executive. Thank you, sir.
Finally, for last 2 days, our anchor has done a wonderful job. I'd like to present a memento to her. On behalf of the Energy Forum, I thank the audience, but for you this would not have been a success. For last 2 days, grueling sessions we had. You have all participated. You have asked very searching questions. Probably all the questions could not be answered due to paucity of time. In Purvodaya Perspectives, we have seen again and again the audience want many answers, but the answers, obviously, due to paucity of time, can't be filtered through. But we'll request that you write to us from the relevant speakers. We'll try to collect the answer and send it. Once more, I thank all of you for joining 25 third edition of Purvodaya Perspective. Now I'll invite all of you for lunch. Thank you. That is at the poolside.
Thank you so much, sir. We express our profound gratitude to all our eminent speakers for sharing their insights, enriching yesterday's and today's session, and deepening our collective understanding of sustainability, technology,